On the large empty road which was surrounded by uncultivated fields, two silhouettes could be seen riding horses. There was one handsome young man and an extremely beautiful young girl. They were galloping at full speed surrounded by a cloud of dust. On the large empty road which was surrounded by uncultivated fields, two silhouettes could be seen riding horses. There was one handsome young man and an extremely beautiful young girl. They were galloping at full speed surrounded by a cloud of dust. These two people were obviously Lin Feng and Meng Qing, who were now riding a single horse towards the imperial city. Lin Feng was proud that he could ride so quickly. His horse was galloping so fast that Lin Feng's long hair was floating along with his robes, which created a sound like that of a flag blowing in the wind. The bad thing though was that Lin Feng was about to fall because of the strong wind. Lin Feng was about to fall because he was standing on the horse behind Meng Qing. However, what comforted him is that he was behind Meng Qing and could put his hands on her shoulders to stabilize himself. If I hadn't broken through to the Ling Qi layer and I was still as weak as before, then I would have fallen down from the horseback a long time ago. Even though Meng Qing had never seen anything else apart from the Black Wind Mountain and she didn't understand much of the outside world, she still didn't let other people notice the change in her emotions. She was extremely smart and also had amazing perception abilities. At that moment, Meng Qing turned her head around and looked at Lin Feng. She noticed that he was having a hard time and slightly smiled at him. Even though it was only a slight smile, it seemed like there was nothing else in the world except that beautiful smile. All other things in the world instantly seemed uninteresting and dull. That smile illuminated everything around it and made the world seem bright. It's too much. What a cruel world, thought Lin Feng. He couldn't believe how beautiful Meng Qing was. When he was looking at her, he forgot everything for a brief moment. He slightly smiled back at her as he thought about his pitiful state. "Do you want to sit down?" asked Meng Qing, looking indifferent again as if nothing could affect her. "Yes, I do," said Lin Feng straightforwardly while nodding. Lin Feng was an honest and straightforward young man. Unfortunately, the world was full of people with evil intentions. It was important not to be naive and not to show other people potential weaknesses, for example by being too honest. But Lin Feng was simple and honest, which is why he was often disappointed by cruel and heartless people. "Explain to me how the outside world works. If you manage to make my heart beat and shake up my feelings, I might consider the matter," said Meng Qing with expectant eyes, which stupefied Lin Feng. He was puzzled and couldn't help but smile. The outside world. Even though Lin Feng knew a lot about how cruel that world was, he was puzzled. After all, he had also been in that world for a short time. Moving Meng Qing was easier said than done. But at that moment, Lin Feng had a flash and said to Meng Qing while smiling, "Let me tell you about the story of my family." "All right," said Meng Qing while faintly nodding. "In my family, there is a ferocious beast which is 1,000 years old. It has magic powers and is extremely strong. Its name is Bai Su Zhen." Lin Feng's voice was faintly audible. He remembered the classic scriptures he had read in his previous life. He remembered the story of the lovers, Liang Shanbua and Zhu Tai. During life they had fallen in love, but due to certain circumstances they had been driven apart. When death had separated the lovers, they transformed their spirits into butterflies so that they would never be separated from each other again. He was trying to take elements from such stories to make his own story even more touching and moving. Meng Qing was so captivated by Lin Feng's words that she didn't pay attention to the fact that Lin Feng sat down behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Their two bodies, from the distance, seemed to be joined as one. "All right," said Lin Feng, who had finished telling his story and then pulled on the reins to stop the horse. At that moment, Meng Qing turned her head around. There was less than a centimeter between Lin Feng and Meng Qing's face. When Lin Feng saw Meng Qing's face that near, his heart started pounding. At this moment all he wanted to do was to kiss her. She was really a captivating and enchanting young woman. "It seems like my heart is still weak." "Ha," thought Lin Feng. So close to Menacing, he was unable to remain cold-blooded. His heart felt like the ice which was gathering had begun to melt. Lin Feng was an extremely motivated cultivator and set high goals for himself. In this world, people like Menacing were rare. She could remain cold-blooded no matter what the situation. Only a wise cultivator could achieve such a high level of self-control, but Lin Feng was incapable of such a thing. He was not on the same level as Menacing. Menacing looked surprised and immediately asked Lin Feng, "Did you finish your story?" "Yes," said Lin Feng while nodding. "If you finished your story, why are you still like this?" "I didn't give you my permission," said Menacing, sounding unsympathetic but with teasing look in her eyes. "Eh?" Lin Feng was surprised and then added, "All right, I'll continue telling you stories." Menacing hummed and turned around without adding anything. Lin Feng's mouth was open but he was speechless. How evil was this woman? If he didn't tell her stories, he couldn't sit like that. Well then, how could he possibly stop telling her stories? Boom vroom vroom. At that moment, the ground was shaking with the sound of horses. Lin Feng gazed into the distance and saw a cloud of dust. This was the sound of horses galloping, and its noise was getting louder and louder. Not long after, a few armored horses appeared in front of them surrounded by a cloud of dust. Menacing urged the horse to move and tried to make him move to a location to hide. At that moment, the armored horses were about to pass them. The leader of these people glanced at Lin Feng for a second and then continued galloping. Horse-mounted bandits. Lin Feng was astonished. These people looked extremely well trained. Even though they were galloping on a road, they were in formation and there wasn't the least bit of chaos in their movements. They were galloping in a perfectly synchronous formation. Strong auras were emanating from their bodies. Lin Feng could sense the aura they had and how incredibly strong these people must have been. However, their clothes and their hairstyles looked terribly messy, just like the thieves Lin Feng had previously killed. How is it possible that these people look so similar to the thieves that you killed? Menacing was also surprised and asked Lin Feng that question, sounding cold and indifferent as always. She just turned around for a second and saw that Lin Feng looked as confused as her. A short while after, Lin Feng seemed like he had understood something. "They are the same." Lin Feng looked ice cold and said, "Menacing, let's go back, quickly." "All right." Without hesitating, they turned around and galloped at full speed in the direction they had just come from. Duan Feng's carriage was going at full speed, leaving a deep trail in the ground behind him. The imperial city was extremely far from Yunyang town and they didn't want to spend too much time on the road. Ho-oh! At that moment, Uncle Wang stopped the carriage. Even though Uncle Wang was extremely weak, he was extremely respected by the Duan clan because he was close to Duan Feng's grandfather. After Duan Feng's father's death, Uncle Wang had been the one assigned to handle a certain number of things in the Duan clan. His status within the clan was extremely high. That is why Uncle Wang had dared to insist for Lin Feng to leave, even though Duan Feng was firmly opposed to that decision. However, except for Duan Feng and Jing Yun, all the others were happy to see Lin Feng leave. At that moment, Uncle Wang noticed a yellow windstorm of dust on the horizon and noticed that the ground was shaking. Everybody felt that the ground was shaking. They all anxiously started gazing into the distance at the source of the commotion. A short time after, a certain number of men mounted on horseback appeared in front of them, which frightened them. Horse-mounted bandits. Suddenly there were more bandits in their way. It seemed like they were really unlucky on this journey. Let's hope that these bandits are not as strong as the thieves we just encountered. They were all hoping that these bandits were not as strong as the thieves they had met before, which were dealt with by Lin Feng. They were all extremely strong and their leader had even reached the Ling Qi layer. If Lin Feng hadn't been there, they would have all been slaughtered. They were thinking about Lin Feng and how he had left them. Uncle Wang had accused Lin Feng of being one of Duan Tianlang's spies, but now Lin Feng wasn't there anymore and now bandits had appeared again. They were all puzzled and wondered what was really happening. But what is sure is that they all wished that Lin Feng was still there with them. Uncle Wang had also thought that Lin Feng was a spy because he had gained Duan Feng's trust very quickly. Besides, at that moment, they didn't know what the bandits' goal was. The chief of the bandits held a long dagger which had a dazzling light covering the surface of the dagger. "Kill them all, leave no survivors," said the chief of the bandits in a cold voice. The bandits' bodies were emitting very strong qi. Boom! The ground was violently shaking. All of the bandits' daggers emitted an extremely strong and deadly qi which moved straight towards to the carriage and started to oppress them. "Protect the young master," shouted Uncle Wang. The guards moved in front of him and released their spirits. "Die!" shouted one of the bandits as he swung his long dagger through the air. Suddenly, blood sprayed everywhere and a head flew into the air. The darker elements of this world in general liked to behead people and always aimed at the throat of their enemies. Wherever they went, blood usually flowed in huge quantities. They enjoyed the fear that would be caused by the scene when others found it. That violent scene seemed like it had stopped time around them. Suddenly, time seemed to pass very slowly and the landscape had become completely silent. Blood was dripping from the tip of the dagger. A guard had been beheaded. There were still a few dozen bandits who were observing them with ferocious eyes. The ones who were left were terrified and shaking from head to toe in terror. Some of the guards were even in a state of panic and their heart was beating out of their chest. They could hardly breathe under the intense pressure of the bandits. These bandits were much stronger than the thieves they had just met. It seemed like it was the end for them. They were all going to die. Could it be that they were going to die in the same conditions and end up beheaded and left here to rot? "Lin Feng, where are you?" They all wanted Lin Feng to come back and save them. They remembered how Lin Feng had killed the thieves so easily and so quickly. Unfortunately, Uncle Wang had ordered Lin Feng to leave and nobody had insisted to make him stay. They were all too proud and many were happy to see him leave, but now they were wishing he was still there. Duan Feng and Jing Yun came out from the carriage and when they saw the scene they were overcome with nausea. Duan Feng and Jing Yun came out from the carriage and when they saw the scene they were overcome with nausea. How cruel and heartless. There was too much blood. For these bandits, people's lives were like trophies to be taken. "Uncle Wang, you're the one who made Lin Feng leave. What should we do now? They want to kill us. We're going to die," shouted Wan Qingshan furiously. Even if Lin Feng was a spy, they should have kept him, at least, they wouldn't have died, but Uncle Wang had made him leave even though Lin Feng was the only who could save them from such a predicament. "Are you blaming me? Are you not the one who called him a piece of trash?" shouted Uncle Wang furiously at Wan Qingshan. "But at least I didn't make him leave," replied Wan Qingshan furiously. He hated Uncle Wang at that moment. He was still young, how could he die so young? It was already too late and it wasn't a matter of wanting to die or not. They were already doomed and were really going to die. And saying these things will save our lives. "Is it useful?" said Uncle Wang in such an arrogant way that it made Wan Qingshan grow more furious. "Die!" The bandits were not planning to stop their attacks. Their long daggers up in the air were diffusing a resplendent yet deadly light. "Ah!" shouted Wan Qingshan furiously. Wan Qingshan wanted to escape from this situation as he didn't want to die. But in front of Wan Qingshan there were two bandits standing with their daggers ready. They could kill him at any moment, his fate had already been sealed. "Why do you want to kill me?" asked Duan Feng to the chief of the bandits with an innocent yet stubborn look on his face. "Young master, you should have never accepted your brother's request to go to the imperial city," shouted Uncle Wang filled with bitter feelings. "Why do you need to know?" "You are going to die anyway," said the chief bandit calmly. He was looking at Duan Feng the same way he would look at a corpse on the road. "Kill him," ordered the chief of the bandits. At that moment, two of the bandits released a strong qi. "Jing Yun, sister, Uncle Wang, I'm sorry for getting you into trouble," said Duan Feng while sounding sincerely sorry. When Uncle Wang heard Duan Feng, he shook his head. As far as Jing Yun is concerned, she was thinking about the fact that she had escaped death when she had left the Yunhai sect, but death was following closely behind her. She wouldn't have thought she would die so early. It seemed like she could only escape her death for this long. At that moment, the sound of a horse galloping spread through the atmosphere. It seemed to come from quite far away, but it surprised everybody, who then looked at the horizon. "Stop!" shouted a voice in the horizon. The horse was moving closer and closer. When they saw the silhouette standing on the horse, they were surprised. Lin Feng and Meng Qing, thought Duan Feng. He wouldn't have thought that Lin Feng would suddenly come back. The chief of the bandits turned his head around and stared at Lin Feng. He was in no rush to kill Duan Feng. Meng Qing was urging on the horse even more, using the whip. At that moment, they had already galloped past the bandits and arrived next to Duan Feng. Lin Feng saw some heads lying on the ground which used to belong to the guards and grew furious. These bandits were like animals and their methods were truly cruel. "Lin Feng, big brother," said Duan Feng, looking extremely happy and deeply grateful. Even though Uncle Wang had disrespected Lin Feng had come back to save them in spite of the potential risks. Lin Feng indifferently nodded to Duan Feng and kept staring coldly at the bandits. "Army troops, disguised as bandits, and on top of that, you are killing your own people. Are you not ashamed of yourselves, seriously?" When Lin Feng finished talking, Duan Feng, who was standing next to him, looked astonished. "Army troops?" The chief of the bandits was astonished. He was staring at Lin Feng and asked him, "What makes you think that we are army troops? Bandits on horses would never adopt such a precise formation and be as disciplined as you are." "They wouldn't even understand the meaning of the words formation or discipline," said Lin Feng coldly to the bandits. Each and every single one of them was speechless. Real thieves and bandits had no methods of moving in formations, as this required years of training. The only rule they followed was complete chaos. How could they be so organized and so incredibly strong? Besides, Lin Feng had sensed the same qi as that released by the soldiers in the Stormy Gorge. It was not as strong as what he had felt in the Stormy Gorge, but was definitely the same type of qi. "The camouflage of the thieves we encountered earlier was much better than yours. They looked like real thieves," continued Lin Feng. "You mean that you killed that group?" The dagger of the bandit chief started to glow. He was evilly staring at Lin Feng. "Indeed, and I will kill you the same way I killed the animals that came before," said Lin Feng confidently. "You talk big, but you're overestimating yourself." "You will die for this," shouted the bandit chief aggressively, and then added, "Kill him." "Roger." The two bandits who wanted to kill Duan Feng then turned around and moved towards Lin Feng with their glowing daggers. Lin Feng looked calm yet firm. When the two bandits arrived near him, he moved his hands slightly. Sword unsheathing. A bright silver light flashed between the two bandits and Lin Feng at amazing speed. Lin Feng's sword attack was incredibly powerful. Suddenly, two trails of blood spayed into the air. There were even some drops of blood which had landed on Lin Feng's horse. "Ling Qi layer," said the bandit chief while looking surprised, and then added in an indifferent tone, "No wonder that he acts so arrogant and had the power to kill the other group." While looking at Lin Feng, he added, "Even if you are not weak, boy, let me tell you, your strength doesn't justify your arrogance, and I will show you how ignorant of the world you truly are." At that moment, a strong and oppressive force rushed towards Lin Feng. "You see, I have broken through to the third Ling Qi layer, so you, who are only at the first Ling Qi layer, could never compete with me. You will regret your provocations. Besides, almost all of my comrades here are of the second Ling Qi layer. Almost every person remaining here can easily kill you, only a few are at your level. Today, I will be magnanimous though. Normally, you should be killed for your provocations, but today, I will give you an offer out of the kindness of my heart. If you join my troops and serve under my command, you will be excused from your previous crimes." The chief of the bandits was trying to make it appear as a favor for Lin Feng, but in his heart, he really hoped that he would be able to recruit Lin Feng. Even if he didn't admit it, Lin Feng, for such a young man, was extremely gifted. People of his age rarely broke through to the Ling Qi layer. Lin Feng's future would definitely be bright, and the bandit therefore hoped Lin Feng could bring him good fortune in the future by serving under him. You are not strong enough yet, but I can teach you many things. If you come with me, I can help you rise very quickly, said the bandit chief. Lin Feng was calmly looking at the chief of the bandits and started smiling. In your dreams, said Lin Feng. The chief of the bandits was stupefied and said, but I am a cultivator of the third Ling Qi layer, are you not afraid of me killing you now? Third Ling Qi layer, is that strong where you come from? Said Lin Feng with a mocking expression on his face. He suddenly started to release qi and force from his body in incredible quantities. First Ling Qi layer. No, second Ling Qi layer. He is truly gifted. The crowd could feel Lin Feng's qi surrounding them. Everybody was stunned because breaking through to the second Ling Qi layer at such an early age was an extraordinary thing, and it was really difficult to achieve. Lin Feng's abilities were terrifying. But they didn't have time to continue observing Lin Feng too long because the power of the qi emerging from Lin Feng's body was ever increasing. What? Said many of the bandits in astonishment. Lin Feng had become even stronger. Could it be that he was at the top of the second Ling Qi layer? They were even more surprised to see that Lin Feng's strength was a strength reached at the peak of the second Ling Qi layer. What a frightening genius. All the bandits could see that Lin Feng was much stronger and much more gifted than they were. Wait, the qi and the force he is releasing is still getting more powerful. Many people were utterly surprised. Could it be that? Boom. The whole crowd was astonished. Lin Feng's force and qi had reached a power of the third Ling Qi layer. At that moment, it had stopped increasing though. Duan Feng and Jing Yun were speechless and astonished. Their hearts were pounding at full speed. He was only about 16 years old and he had already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. That was monstrous and beastly. What a genius. We need that boy. The chief of the bandits really wanted to recruit Lin Feng. If he recommended Lin Feng, he would probably receive a great reward which would raise his status and grant him a large sum of money. I admit that you are a genius, but you are only at the third Ling Qi layer, which is not enough to defeat all of us. We have enough people here that we can easily kill you, said the chief of the bandits, and then added, however, if you accept my offer to join me, I will first recommend you to become my personal assistant, and when the right moment comes, I will recommend you to rise up in the hierarchy and your future will have endless opportunities. Besides, if you want anything in the future, you can always ask me and I will do my best to help you achieve your aims. Is it still not enough? You are still confident in your ability to defeat me, said Lin Feng, who was smiling coldly. At that moment, Lin Feng released the incredible amount of qi and force which he had been condensing all along. It was beyond monstrously strong. At that moment, everybody could feel that they had been consumed by the energy released by Lin Feng. Immediately after, they could feel the sword qi was piercing into them like a blade and contained another energy. Sword force, said the chief of the bandits as he grew even more surprised. Is this enough for you? Said Lin Feng while laughing evilly. Lin Feng made another step and released even more sword force. This time, however, it was even more powerful than a moment before. Lin Feng's strength is terrifying. If I was in the middle of that sword qi, I would die in the blink of an eye. Duan Feng whispered that to Jing Yun, who was standing on his side. Jing Yun didn't know that Lin Feng had become so strong. He was much stronger than the last time she had seen him. Uncle Wang was also staring at Lin Feng and his thoughts were flowing at full speed. He didn't know what to think or believe anymore. When the chief of the bandits heard Lin Feng's words, a hideous expression appeared on his face. Lin Feng was a sword master who could use sword force and sword qi with such mastery. Besides, his power was ever increasing each time he released more of his energy. The chief of the bandits was even more worried because the energy that Lin Feng was releasing was a threat to his life. Lin Feng was most likely stronger than even him. He then remembered everything that he told Lin Feng a moment before and thought that his words had been ridiculous. "Such a pity, a genius like you has to die so early," said the chief of the bandits while looking at Lin Feng and shaking his head. "Such a pity, a genius like you has to die so early," said the chief of the bandits while looking at Lin Feng and shaking his head. Lin Feng was very young, and even if he could already use sword force, he could not be as strong as the combined power of this many experts, even if he was stronger than them individually. They were already condensing a huge amount of qi and preparing for their attack. They all wanted to kill Lin Feng. "Don't worry, I can't die from something like this," said Lin Feng, sounding extremely confident. He was a bit worried a moment before. He had thought that they might have a multitude of people who have reached the third Ling Qi layer, but in the end, the bandit chief revealed that they were much weaker than Lin Feng initially thought. When Lin Feng had broken through to the second Ling Qi layer, he could already compete with Duan Han of the fourth Ling Qi layer. Lin Feng had actually greatly increased his strength since then, so he didn't really worry about defeating the group even if they attacked together. "You seem overconfident, but I will tell you that you are just being stupid," said the chief of the bandits, sounding extremely calm. He brandished his long dagger in the air, and at that moment, all of the bandits did the same. Then suddenly an extremely strong qi invaded the atmosphere. At that moment, Lin Feng was surrounded and enveloped by the combined attack from the bandits' qi. He had the feeling his bones were going to crack from the pressure. These bandits were many times stronger than the thieves that he had defeated before. "Die!" shouted all the bandits at the same time. The qi of their daggers pierced through the atmosphere directly towards Lin Feng, who was still surrounded by his sword force. Their fear of Lin Feng was overtaken by their desire to kill him. Their long daggers glowed from all directions, and the qi they released was directed at oppressing Lin Feng. "Since you're attacking me, you should just die," said Lin Feng, and then closed his eyes. He released his celestial spirit and entered the world of darkness. His brain also started processing all the data at full speed. He instantly understood the position of every incoming attack around him. Every single dagger, every single movement the bandits made, Lin Feng could see and feel everything clearly. He was holding his soft sword, out of which a grayish-black qi was emerging and filled in the atmosphere. Almost all of the bandits had arrived next to Lin Feng at the same time, and their daggers were all glowing. They all had expectant smiles on their faces. Lin Feng's sword force invaded the entire atmosphere, but Lin Feng remained motionless. "Deadly sword," whispered Lin Feng. Suddenly, he moved his body at shocking speed. His long sword made a perfect curve through the air. The grayish-black qi as well as the sword force had annihilated everything in its path. His attack was extremely powerful. The daggers had stopped glowing, and the bandits who had attacked Lin Feng were all sent flying backwards. On their bodies was a mark left by Lin Feng's deadly sword. The horses had gone crazy and were unceasingly neighing. The chief of the bandits was staring blankly at Lin Feng. He was gasping in astonishment and shaking from head to toe in complete terror. This was completely unheard of. All the members of his troop without exception had been blown away and then miserably fell onto the ground. There hadn't been the slightest noise, but with a single sword strike, Lin Feng had killed them all. The chief of the bandits had a shiver run down his spine. He was astonished. He was looking at Lin Feng and could only feel Lin Feng's dreadful qi wrapping around his body. "It's your turn," said Lin Feng. The chief of the bandits saw that Lin Feng had finally opened his eyes and had started moving towards him. A cold qi was moving towards him at full speed. Lin Feng's dark eyes looked lifeless and evil. A moment before, Lin Feng looked calm and serene even though his eyes still revealed some indignation and anger. But at that moment, Lin Feng's facial expression had undergone a drastic change. His expression was ice-cold and emotionless. His two eyes had become pitch black and gave the impression that they would consume anyone who looked directly into them. How could the chief of the bandits still want to fight against Lin Feng? Fear was petrifying him and he could not even move a muscle other than to escape. The chief's horse started turning around to escape. The chief of the bandits wanted to escape from that deadly sword at all costs. He wasn't able to counter a single attack from Lin Feng. "You want to leave?" said Lin Feng with a cold smile on his face. He used his moonlight feather agility technique and jumped 100 meters towards the bandit chief. The energy released by his deadly sword was creating vortexes as it passed through the air. Lin Feng's sword energy immediately crashed into the chief's body and pierced a hole directly through his chest. If he had tried to block the attack, maybe he could have resisted for a few more strikes, but it looked like he had given up all hope and knew that he was going to die under that sword. This was the end for the bandit and his body heavily crashed onto the ground. Lin Feng recalled his spirit back into his body. His eyes became normal again. He turned around and walked towards Duan Feng and the others. "Lin Feng, big brother." Duan Feng's eyes were filled with gratitude and admiration. Lin Feng was way too strong. Besides, even if he was as strong as Lin Feng, he probably wouldn't take the same risks. At that moment, Uncle Wan started to talk as well. He had a big smile on his face and said, "Lin Feng, young man, I made a mistake. I am sorry." Lin Feng looked at the old man. He looked incredibly cold. How long are you going to pretend?" Lin Feng spat the words out in anger. At that moment, Uncle Wang was stupefied. Duan Feng and Jing Yun were also surprised. They didn't understand what Lin Feng meant. "Lin Feng, young man, please explain what you mean," said Uncle Wang, looking careless yet staring fixedly at Lin Feng. "These bandits were all army troops, right?" said Lin Feng. "Indeed. They must be army troops," replied Old Wang. Duan Feng nodded and asked, "What does that have to do with Uncle Wang?" "Duan Feng, do you remember that Uncle Wang said that the first thieves I killed were actually calmly speaking with me?" "I remember," said Duan Feng while nodding. "If Uncle Wang is as weak as you think, then how could he hear and observe these things better than all of you?" replied Lin Feng. "I have been loyal and devoted to the Duan clan for so many years. I am in charge of controlling that the young master is safe at all times. I always have to pay attention to every single detail. I know that you, young man, bear a grudge against me, but there is no need to try and damage my reputation like this," said Old Wang. "Damage your reputation?" said Lin Feng coldly. "I am not that kind of person. What the chief of the thieves told me has nothing to do with this affair. I think that all these thieves and bandits came straight for Duan Feng to kill him, and all of you would have let him die," said Lin Feng in disdain. "Maybe," nodded Uncle Wang. "Who knows? Well, since that is the case, I find a bit strange. I killed all of the thieves in the first group. Not a single one of them was left to send a message to the second group, but how could the second group know that Duan Feng hadn't died? Why did they still come? How did the bandit chief know that the first group had been killed when he asked me if it was me who killed them?" said Lin Feng, which surprised everybody. Indeed, the second group was ready to come and kill Duan Feng after the first group died. How could they know that he hadn't died? Since they knew, there must have been someone who told them. There must be a spy. "What do you think?" said Lin Feng while staring at Uncle Wang. "Maybe you are right. There might be a spy. But Lin Feng shouldn't forget about the fact that you were much farther in front of us and that the bandits came after you left us. So if there is a spy, then..." "Hee," said Uncle Wang while laughing. He didn't finish his sentence, but everybody understood what he meant. "Why are you laughing? Is this situation a joking matter to you?" said Lin Feng with a cold tone when he saw that the old man was laughing. But Duan Feng and Jing Yun started looking at Uncle Wang in a strange way, which immediately made him stop laughing. "It's easy to understand what the situation really is when you have a brain," said Lin Feng firmly, and then continued, "There were two groups of bandits. They were probably working together, and then you implied that I worked with them. If I was working with them, then I would have killed the first group to gain your trust, but what about the second group? The people behind this are not stupid and would definitely not sacrifice so many strong individuals for such a reason. Do you think that everybody is stupid and you are the only one with a brain? Uncle Wang looked panicked as he was running short on arguments and didn't know what to say anymore. Lin Feng wanted to do a favor for Duan Feng as he had shown him kindness. Uncle Wang really thought that the others were stupid. He was bringing Duan Feng straight to the bandits ready to be killed. Alright, even if it's not you or me, it could be anyone else, said old Wang in a panic. Anyone else? Said Lin Feng with a sarcastic smile on his face. What do you mean? Duan Feng called them himself so they could take his life? Then, there is Jing Yun, but Jing Yun was in the carriage all along sitting with Duan Feng and had had no opportunity to inform anyone. Then, there were all the guards, but they have all died thanks to the second group of bandits. You are the only left to suspect, Uncle Wang. Still alive and completely unharmed, not even a single attack was aimed in your direction. Besides, you've been looking calm throughout the whole journey, even when the bandits arrived, because you knew everything from the beginning. Duan Feng and Jing Yun were stupefied while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, big brother, Uncle Wang has been working for the Duan clan for many years. He's always cared for me since my childhood. He would never hurt me. This is probably a misunderstanding or a coincidence. Duan Feng refused to believe that theory. Uncle Wang was a friend of his grandfather and had always been there for him. Duan Feng, what kind temperament does Uncle Wang have? Replied Lin Feng. Gentle, philanthropic and charitable, replied Duan Feng. Gentle, philanthropic and charitable. Duan Feng, if this was really the case, then why has he been opposed to our friendship from the moment he learned of my strength? Didn't his personality drastically change when he saw me kill the thieves? He was the one who forced me to leave using the most absurd reasons. Don't you think that all of this is completely out of character? Said Lin Feng coldly, which made Duan Feng look surprised. Actually, Uncle Wang's behavior had been really strange. You have absolutely no proof of what you are saying. I have been working for the Duan clan for so many years. If the young master believes you, then I should just accept my death. You could kill me easily at any time, but instead you try to tarnish my reputation. It would be as easy as lifting your hand, so there is no need to continue talking. Please kill me, said Uncle Wang coldly. He closed his eyes as a sign that he was begging to be killed, which made Duan Feng feel extremely awkward. What a disgusting old man, said Lin Feng while staring at Uncle Wang. He was speechless. The old man's method to make Duan Feng feel guilty was horrible. Lin Feng, young man, why are you not killing me? Take my life. You are so strong. Nobody will ever say that you unfairly killed someone. Nobody would ever dare, said Uncle Wang in a weak voice. Uncle Wang sounded like he had been extremely hurt by Lin Feng. It sounded like Lin Feng's purpose had been to kill the old man all the way. Lin Feng, big brother, the situation was horrible for Duan Feng. He respected Lin Feng a lot and thought that he was strong and powerful. Besides, he had saved him twice already, and Uncle Wang had always been taking care of him since his childhood. He was like a member of his family, an elder of his family. I have no way to prove everything that I said. If you don't believe me, then there is nothing else that I can do. Whether he is important for you or not is not my problem, and it has nothing to do with me. I just wanted to warn you, that's all. Jing Yun, do you want to continue the journey with us, or are you going to stay here? Lin Feng didn't feel like arguing anymore. After all, he had only known Duan Feng for a day. Even if he thought that Duan Feng was a remarkably kind young boy, if he didn't believe him, then it wasn't necessary to keep trying convincing him. As far as Jing Yun is concerned, Lin Feng always considered her as a great friend and didn't want to put her aside or to make her feel abandoned. Lin Feng, I've had respect for you all the way, but now you are really just humiliating everybody. First, you humiliate me, an old man, and now you are humiliating Jing Yun, putting her in an awkward situation. You are going too far. Uncle Wang said these words on a very cold and aggressive tone, as if he had been provoked by Lin Feng. Shut the hell up, shouted Lin Feng extremely loudly while glancing at Uncle Wang, which stunned the latter. All right. Lin Feng, I see that you only know how to rely on your strength to bully others. Are you done talking? At that moment, a cold and indifferent voice spread in the air. It was Menacing. Everybody was surprised. She had surprisingly said something even though she was quite uncommunicative most of the time. Menacing was staring at Uncle Wang and she looked disgusted. She then said, "You really are an impudent old man. You initially thought that you were going to leave alone at the beginning after everybody would have been killed by the bandits, but your plan failed and now you are trying to humiliate and bully Lin Feng. Do you have no shame?" Lin Feng was astonished. He wouldn't have thought that Menacing would suddenly join in. Lin Feng was astonished. He wouldn't have thought that Menacing would suddenly join in. Uncle Wang was astonished as well and shouted furiously, "You two are working together. However, there is no need to make slanderous accusations. You two are extremely strong. If you want to kill me, just kill me. There is no need to make up reasons." "So you want to die that much?" said Lin Feng calmly but filled with indignation because of that shameless old man. "What other choice do I have?" "You are treating an old man like me in such a horrible way," replied the old man. "Don't worry, there are enough reasons for you to die," said Lin Feng. Menacing started talking and said, "Lin Feng, search him. You might find an item which could be used as evidence, for example, something which would enable several people to communicate even if a long distance separates them." "Huh?" Lin Feng was stupefied and glanced at Menacing. Immediately after, he looked at Uncle Wang again. If Menacing was right and Uncle Wang possessed such an item, it would be very clear that he was at the origin of everything that had happened on the journey. Uncle Wang's face drastically changed. Hee, I really need to search him," thought Lin Feng while staring at Uncle Wang and smiling coldly. "Stop harassing me with your crazy and unfounded ravings. If you want to kill me, just kill me. There is no need to humiliate me like this. I am a weak old man, but I don't deserve to be humiliated like this," said Uncle Wang. "You don't need to try and make everyone think you are a victim. That only makes you even more disgusting." "If Lin Feng finds nothing, I will die," said Menacing. She was calm but her words were incredibly sharp. Lin Feng looked at Menacing, smiled and said, "If I find nothing, you kill me." "I don't want you to die, Menacing. My life will be enough." When Lin Feng finished talking, his silhouette vanished and suddenly appeared in front of Uncle Wang. He then started holding him tightly and moved quickly so that the old man wouldn't have time to speak. Lin Feng's hand moved all over the old man's body and a short instant after took out a small black pouch. Lin Feng untied it and took a little sealed bottle out of it. "What do you have to say now?" said Lin Feng while looking at the old man who was shaking. Lin Feng had a teasing expression in his eyes. Duan Feng and Jing Yun were astonished. They were blankly staring at the old man. They needed an explanation. "Young master, I have always been close to the members of your family. I used to be close to your grandfather, then I was close to your father and now I am close to you. I have been caring for you since your childhood. Do you remember the love and affection that I showed you?" Uncle Wang was looking at Duan Feng with an affectionate and tender expression in his eyes. "I, of course, remember, but why?" Duan Feng hoped that Uncle Wang would give valid arguments but, unfortunately, he didn't. "Since you remember, I have nothing to add. If young master wants me to live, I will live, if you want me to die, I will die." When Duan Feng heard Uncle Wang, his heart was pounding. He was moved and touched by the old man's words. But it wasn't the same for Lin Feng, who felt his heart grow colder and colder. How could the old man be so shameless and that impudent? Menacing guessed right, and we found evidence that you are the traitor. Do you think that a few emotional phrases will be enough to forget everything? Said Lin Feng, which made the old man shiver. Lin Feng, young man, this affair has nothing to do with you. You don't need to act like this, said Uncle Wang. Nothing to do with me, said Lin Feng while taking his long sword out, which made Uncle Wang look at him in shock. Lin Feng then added, didn't you say that you wanted to die a moment ago? Now that we have irrefutable facts that you are a traitor, why do you no longer say that you want to die? Do you think that we will let you play as many tricks as you want? Uncle Wang could already feel the deadly qi from Lin Feng's sword pressed against his body. He was shaking from head to toe with fear. The pressure alone sent shivers down his spine. Young master, said Uncle Wang while looking at Duan Feng, who was his last hope at life. No need to beg him. Even if he tells me to let you off, I won't. I will kill you no matter what to avenge all those who have died because of you, especially all these young guards. They will be able to rest in peace when you die. Who cares if you die? When Lin Feng finished talking, his long sword stuck down on the old man. Blood splashed through the air and filled it with the scent of death. That old man was an impudent and a shameless liar. How was it possible to let him continue living? Feel. Duan Feng took a deep breath. He looked very sad at the betrayal and death of old Wang. He turned around and said, Lin Feng, big brother, I'm sorry for everything. It's all right. You were just misled by him, that's all, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't blame Duan Feng at all. Duan Feng was still young, only about 14 years old, and Uncle Wang was the closest person to him. Therefore, trusting Uncle Wang was a normal thing for Duan Feng. Thank you, Lin Feng. I hope that you will not refuse to continue traveling with me to the Imperial City, said Duan Feng as if he had already forgotten the events that just occurred, but his eyes still revealed his sadness. They were about to head for the Imperial City together. Only Duan Feng, Jing Yun, Lin Feng and Menacing were left. It was the first time that Duan Feng experienced the cruelty which people were capable of. What scared him the most is that the people who had tried to kill him were troops from the army and thus protectors of the Shuiyu country. No problem, said Lin Feng while nodding. He then asked to Duan Feng, do you still want to continue on your journey and go to the Imperial City? Since we already left, there is no need to escape to another place, said Duan Feng, whose eyes were started to look less heartbroken. Suddenly, his facial expression changed as if he had an epiphany and said, Lin Feng, big brother, you don't need to travel with us though. The large road that leads to the Imperial City is filled with all kinds people. We just need to find another road and we should be fine. Lin Feng knew what Duan Feng meant and shook his head. I have looked at the map, but I don't know how many roads lead to the Imperial City. Let me drive the carriage, said Jing Yun. Duan Feng was troubled because of all the things that had just happened, but still said worriedly, Jing Yun, sister, don't push yourself too hard. The four of them moved towards the carriage and Jing Yun drove the carriage while the others sat inside the carriage. Lin Feng and Duan Feng were having a discussion inside the carriage. Duan Feng, there is one thing that I would like to ask you. Go ahead and ask me. Uncle Wang accused me of having betrayed the Yunhai sect and of being sent by Duan Tianlang to kill you. What does Duan Tianlang have to do with you? Why would he want to kill you? When Duan Feng heard Lin Feng's question, he made a wry smile. I'm sorry, I may be too inquisitive. You don't have to answer, added Lin Feng. If I am still alive, it is thanks to you. There is nothing too inquisitive when coming from you, said Duan Feng while shaking his head. He then said, it's just that it is a very complex matter. Family matters are always complicated, I guess. My family name is Duan, you already know that. What might be less clear to you is that it is the name which belongs to the imperial clan. I am also a member of that clan. But because my grandparents made mistakes, we ended up in the Yunyang. Nowadays, there is nothing that distinguishes me from the ordinary people in that small town. Duan Feng was speaking slowly as he told his story. Lin Feng was calmly listening to him. He was amazed because he would have never thought that Duan Feng was related to the imperial clan. Lin Feng, did you know that the Duan family are the imperial clan at the head of the Shuiyu country? Yes. They are extremely strong and respected by everyone within the Shuiyu country, replied Lin Feng. However, I don't know for how many years the Duan clan has been at the head of the country and how long they will be able to reign over the country in such a prosperous way, said Duan Feng. Lin Feng was surprised. He had never asked himself that question. Reigning over a country and keeping it prosperous was a difficult task, but the Duan clan had been in charge of the country for a long time. It wasn't possible for them to reign over the country indefinitely, but until now, they had always been the strongest clan at the head of the country. Spirit, suddenly shouted Lin Feng. Lin Feng thought of a possibility. The probability to inherit one's ancestor's spirit was extremely high, so maybe all the members of the Duan clan were extremely strong because of the spirit they inherited. That's right. That's precisely it, our spirits. More precisely, it's the blood spirit, replied Duan Feng while nodding. Blood spirit? I've never heard of that before, said Lin Feng surprised. He had never heard about any blood spirit before. Lin Feng, brother, the blood spirit is as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. It's a rarity of rarities. It's that way in the entire Tianlong region. It is normal that you have never heard of it, explained Duan Feng. Even in the vast and almost boundless Tianlong region, the blood spirit is extremely rare, so it was even rarer in the Shuiyu country, which was only a small country within the region. It is said that the possessors of a blood spirit are extremely powerful. It is also said that all their energy can circulate freely into their blood system. This kind of ability greatly enhances the cultivation practices of the blood spirit possessors. Younger generations almost systematically inherit that spirit, but in some cases it becomes weaker through the generations. Systematically inherit a blood spirit. How terrifying, said Lin Feng. It is indeed terrifying. I don't understand all the benefits that come with a blood spirit though, said Duan Feng, making a wry smile. He was still too young. His strength was nothing in comparison with adult cultivators within the clan who possessed a blood spirit. Lin Feng, after all my explanations, you probably understood why the imperial clan rules over this country without question. The Duan clan members all have it. My grandparents and my father had it. Lin Feng was astonished. No wonder that they could reign over the country for such a long time. They can circulate their energy into their blood, and the special strength which is created is transmitted onto the next generations. The Duan clan members all have it. My grandparents and my father had it. Lin Feng was astonished. No wonder that they could reign over the country for such a long time. They can circulate their energy into their blood, and the special strength which is created is transmitted onto the next generations. The possessors of that strength could increase their natural abilities many times over. They were not like ordinary people. They could increase their own power and that of their next generations. Because the strength which is created by the blood spirit, the natural abilities of a person also change. If natural abilities are increased and that they are systematically transmitted onto the next generation, it means that their power increases each time it is passed down. However, because the power can also be weak in some children, it is important for the male cultivators possessing the blood spirit to have many concubines and many children to ensure that there is greater chance of a pure lineage. Lin Feng was stupefied and smiled wryly. Because some children didn't get the purest power and had a weaker spirit, the Duan clan members decided that having multiple offspring would increase the chances at stronger generations. They only needed at least one genius to be born, and that would be enough. Lin Feng was not sure that he understood the logic of this properly. He could not think on the same wavelength. Because of that, there are many problems which were created between the members of the Duan clan. That is what happens when too many people live together in one place. Besides, it is also a harsh environment in which the competition is often extremely oppressive. There is a lot of pressure to be the strongest. If you are weak in the Duan clan, you are almost sure to get rejected by the clan. A moment ago, I told you that my grandfather had left because he had had some problems with other members, but I am convinced that he might have been rejected or expelled because he was too weak. That wouldn't be impossible considering the situation and rules of the clan. There are so many people who get expelled from the Duan clan because they are too weak. Duan Feng continued to talk while Lin Feng was calmly and attentively listening to him. If the members of the Duan clan had many concubines, it was normal for them to have many children. But it wasn't possible for the imperial clan to have hundreds of millions within the clan, so getting expelled from the Duan clan was a normal thing. Besides, too many people were hard to manage and that often led to chaotic situations. Every single child of the Duan clan inherits strength from that blood spirit, but those who are expelled leave and try to stay hidden while never revealing their identity. However, there are always people who follow them closely, and then if they become extremely strong, then the Duan clan will accept them as members again. When Duan Feng was speaking, he suddenly made a pause and continued, "Lin Feng, I also hid the truth from you. I told you that it was my big brother who had recommended me to the Celestial Academy. Well, he is like a brother to me, but he is not my real brother. His status is quite important. He is the second prince of the country. He is His Majesty's second son. He is extremely talented and knows many mysterious and mystical things. He is monstrously powerful. His Majesty's second son." Lin Feng wouldn't have thought that Duan Feng knew such illustrious people. "Duan Feng, it seems like you have extremely high natural abilities as well as the inherited strength from the blood spirit," said Lin Feng while smiling at Duan Feng. Duan Feng had been invited to come to the imperial city by His Majesty's second son personally. Obviously, Duan Feng was extremely talented and possessed a purer blood spirit which had greater strength and energy within. It is impossible to determine how much of strength one has. It is essential to practice a lot, to develop one's own abilities and get to know one's spirit perfectly. But the blood spirit can't be extremely strong directly at the beginning. You need to develop its power. I can release my spirit, but it is still too weak. I am extremely far from the second prince's abilities. But there is someone even more powerful than His Majesty's second son. He is the same generation as us, but he is a true genius. In the entire history of the Duan clan, geniuses as powerful as him are rare. Besides, it had been at least 1,000 years since the Duan clan had someone with such a powerful blood spirit. Lin Feng was captivated by Duan Feng's words. From what Duan Feng had said, it already seemed like the second son of His Majesty was one of the strongest members of the Duan clan, but that other young man seemed to be even stronger. That person is the Crown Prince himself. He is destined to rule the country in the future. He is regarded as the genius of the millennium in the Duan clan. He is so strong that amongst the 8 high officials of the Shuiyu country, there has never been anyone who could take the first place in the rankings from him. It is probably normal for a crown prince to be extremely powerful. His abilities are endless and his bloodline is pure. His name is Duan Wudao. Duan Wudao is a real genius, always cold-blooded, strong and smart. He has killed many people. It is said that when he became strong, he challenged his teacher, and then killed his own teacher. He seems to think that if a teacher is weaker than him, then he isn't qualified to be a teacher any longer. Many people hate him bitterly, but nobody has ever dared to disobey him. He would kill anyone who dares to disobey him. Killing his own teacher, how cruel and heartless. He really has no moral values. If the Crown Prince is a genius and there is nobody stronger than him, it is a difficult situation, but his brother the second son could also become tremendously strong. He is younger than the Crown Prince right now, but he could become one of the 8 officials in the future. He also seems to be a modest person who is appreciated by many. Lin Feng was slightly nodding as if he understood much more of the inner workings of the imperial clan as the discussion continued. Lin Feng now had a general idea of how things worked in the imperial clan. Duan Feng continued, the crown prince is a genius that nobody dares disobey, but the second sometimes will go against his brother. It is said that the two are not on the same wavelength, but I don't know too much about it. I heard these things from my father when he was still alive. You were talking about Duan Tianlang. He is very close to the crown prince. So that's how it is, said Lin Feng while nodding, and then added, so when Uncle Wang said that Duan Tianlang had sent me, it was because he was trying to destroy our new friendship. Because if I was close to Duan Tianlang, I was indirectly on the side of the crown prince. Precisely. That must have been his reasoning, said Duan Feng while nodding. All this trouble had happened because the second prince had recommended Duan Feng to help him study at the Celestial Academy. Duan Feng had been in danger a few times, yet the second prince had never shown himself. The second prince seems to be very smart. Please be careful, warned Lin Feng. Hee, there is nobody who dares disobey the crown prince. Even if the second prince disobeys him, it doesn't mean that he can prevent him from doing things. Thus, the crown prince had most likely ordered people to kill me, and that is within his power. However, the second prince wouldn't try to help me, and that's normal. I'm too unworthy for him to fight with the crown prince. That could lead to a disastrous situation between them for nothing, said Duan Feng while smiling wryly. He looked sad. Maybe the second prince and the crown prince never go out. Their way of handling affairs is to delegate tasks to various people. This is their way of doing things, that's all. Lin Feng was still nodding. Lin Feng was really captivated by Duan Feng's words. Lin Feng was also impressed and astonished to hear such a young man talk with such eloquence. He was very smart for his age. He was right after all, the second prince and the crown prince were at the head of such a huge powerhouse filled with members ready to obey their orders at any given time. I have a question though. If all the members of the Duan clan have a blood spirit, how come Duan Tianlang and his son both use swords? This is what I meant when I told you about the fact that the blood spirit could weaken from generation to generation. This is also why the Duan clan members want to have so many children, because they need to be sure to have at least one with a strong blood spirit which is dominant. If the blood spirit weakens, then the cultivator would have another spirit which would normally be dominant. That dominant spirit will combine itself with the blood spirit in its weakened state. That is probably what happened in their case and why you noticed that they both use sword spirits. So, even if the strength of the blood spirit is weak, they will all have dual spirits. How terrifying, thought Lin Feng, who felt a shiver run down his spine. As far as the blood spirit and its special strength are concerned, there are some extremely gifted cultivators who inherit a pure and unadulterated blood spirit whose strength can increase infinitely, said Duan Feng. He looked strange at that moment and added, Lin Feng, brother, I inherited from a pure and unadulterated blood spirit, which is why I attracted the second prince's attention. Lin Feng slightly nodded. Lin Feng had already guessed that Duan Feng was a prodigy and probably has a blood spirit that was extremely powerful. That is why he attracted the attention of two people, one who wanted to help him and considered him important and another who wanted to kill him. Duan Feng smiled and said to Lin Feng, big brother, could it be that you don't know what kind of spirit the blood spirit is? I have never heard about the blood spirit before. I have never even seen Duan Tianlang and his son use it. It doesn't seem to be something that its possessors seem to enjoy showing to strangers, said Lin Feng while smiling. Lin Feng, big brother, you saved my life twice already. We are not strangers anymore. You are like my family. Have a look at my blood spirit. When Duan Feng finished talking, a strange qi enveloped his body and then his spirit appeared behind his back. There were 3 black doors floating calmly above his body. They diffused an extremely ancient qi which felt like the qi of a long-dead era. These doors were open and they led into endless dark holes. It was impossible to see the end by looking at them. Lin Feng was blankly staring at these 3 doors. Then, a strangely familiar impression invaded him. Lin Feng, big brother, If you ever meet members of the Duan clan in the future, then you really have to be careful. Our spirit is called sealed doors. It can confine and seal other people's power and strength behind these doors and even seal their life. The more seals you have, the stronger and the more powerful your spirit and your strength becomes. The second prince personally has 5 seals. He is extremely powerful. It is said that one of our ancestors could seal the souls of 5,000 people in a single strike. When a cultivator uses this ability, a seal appears on the opponent's body as a personal mark of the one who carried out the attack. Then, either his strength or his spirit is sealed. Duan Feng was speaking slowly, and Lin Feng was shaking. Menacing and Duan Feng were suddenly astonished and were staring blankly at Lin Feng. That is, the sealed door. Lin Feng was speechless. A strong qi was emanating from his body. Suddenly, he remembered where he had felt that qi. It was when he was a child and the victim had been his father, Lin Hai. The seal had appeared between his eyebrows. If Lin Hai had the mark of a sealed door between his eyebrows, it meant that Lin Feng's father had come into conflict with a member of the Duan clan. If Lin Hai had the mark of a sealed door between his eyebrows, it meant that Lin Feng's father had come into conflict with a member of the Duan clan. Before leaving Yangzhou City, Lin Hai had told Lin Feng that he was going to the Imperial City. Lin Feng's memories were a bit chaotic, but he remembered that his father hated the members of the Duan clan and vice versa. Lin Feng's father probably hadn't gone to the Imperial City for pleasure or for a short holiday. It was most likely he was going to settle a conflict. Did you run into danger for me, father? This time, I'm coming to the Imperial City and I will definitely find you. Lin Feng didn't know how his father had provoked the Duan clan. He also didn't know why there were tensions between them and his father. If he found his father, he would definitely try to understand what had occurred in the past between him and the Duan clan. Lin Feng had suddenly remembered that his father had never told him about his mother. Lin Feng found that it was very strange. Lin Feng. Menacing was looking at Lin Feng and thought that he was acting strangely, which is why she called out to him. Lin Feng was lost in thought, but at that moment came back into consciousness. Lin Feng's thoughts were agitated because of all the questions and possibilities. Lin Feng was surprised by Menacing and then said, I'm all right. Duan Feng, when will we arrive in the Imperial City? If we keep traveling at this speed and there are no problems on the road, then it should take another 5 or 6 days at a minimum. I'll drive the carriage later to let Jing Yun have some rest. We'll make even quicker time that way, said Lin Feng. Even though Duan Feng didn't know what Lin Feng really meant, he still nodded. He was wondering why Lin Feng had been acting so strangely after he had seen the sealed doors. But Lin Feng didn't tell Duan Feng what was going through his head, and Duan Feng wasn't going to ask. Duan Feng was right, even at full speed while traveling day and night, they would really need at least 5 or 6 days to arrive in the Imperial City. Because they had taken another road to the Imperial City, they had not come across any attackers. Maybe it was also because no one knew Duan Feng's location any longer due to them removing the spy. The Imperial City was vast, but roads leading to it weren't numerous. Actually, the entire city was surrounded by huge barriers and there was only one gate to enter it. The gate was gigantic and majestic. It was made of incredibly strong precious materials. The gate had a width and a height of several hundreds of meters. At the top of the gate, there were multiple guards with spears. The Imperial City was encircled by a huge moat filled with water, and the only gate was accessible only after crossing a large stone bridge. This was the only way to access the city. However, the entrance gate of the Imperial City was securely closed. It would only open during the day for a few hours. Pedestrians weren't bothered by that because outside of the Imperial City, there was another city which wasn't as big but still had millions of inhabitants. It was quite famous. At that moment, a carriage had arrived outside the Imperial City. Lin Feng was the one driving it. They were precisely in the city next to the Imperial City. There was a myriad of restaurants and shops. The city was incredibly lively. Lin Feng thought that it was much better of an atmosphere than when inside Yangzhou City. There are so many people, said Meng Qing, who had opened the curtain inside the carriage and was looking out of the window. We are not in the Imperial City yet. This is the periphery, but we're still close to the Imperial City, so obviously there are many people, said Lin Feng while laughing from outside. Lin Feng was also convinced that there were so many people in the region at the moment because many of them hoped to be chosen to practice their cultivation at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. For the inhabitants of the Shuiyu country, the creation of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu was a unique moment in the history of the country. It was going to change the life and destiny of thousands of people. At that moment, nobody was paying attention to their carriage. Everybody was young and hoped to assist in the inauguration of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu and eventually be taken to study there. Meng Qing, you must be exhausted because of the long trip. Considering the gate isn't open yet, it would be best to have a break and eat something. Lin Feng stopped near a restaurant. Duan Feng and Jing Yun came out of the carriage as well. The four of them entered the restaurant. In the middle, there was a huge tree, and that tree was growing through the roof of the restaurant. There was a hole in the middle of the restaurant so you could also see the first floor. It was filled with people and many of them were either drinking tea or wine. They immediately headed to the wooden stairs and went to the first floor because the restaurant was very crowded. What surprised Lin Feng though was that the restaurant, even though it was filled with people, was very calm. There were many people but they weren't talking loud at all to the extent that you could almost perfectly hear the musician playing the guqin on the first floor. What a peaceful and serene restaurant. No wonder it has such a good reputation, whispered Lin Feng. Even though that place wasn't a luxurious one, it still looked elegant and refined. The decoration was also done with taste, which gave its customers a perfect environment to taste their tea and wine in peace. It was definitely a perfect atmosphere. Lin Feng, big brother, there is one free table over there. What a coincidence. Duan Feng noticed a table near a window. The four of them went and sat there. Hello, how may I help you? Asked a waiter who had to come the four of them while smiling. We'll have a big pot of the best wine that you have as well as your best tea, and some pickles, ordered Lin Feng. Since Lin Feng was in that world, he hadn't really tasted good food and drinks. At that moment, he had the opportunity so he seized it. Noted. Please wait for a moment, said the waiter and left. Lin Feng was listening to the other people's conversations. Even though they were almost whispering, Lin Feng had the strength of the Ling Qi layer and his sense of hearing was thus extremely developed, and in general nobody would be revealing secrets in such a public place. It seemed that everyone was only talking about the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Lin Feng also heard that some people were mentioning the crown prince and the second prince. Bro Han, you're saying that the Yunhai sect has been annihilated? Who could benefit from the destruction of the Yunhai sect? At that moment, a conversation drew Lin Feng's attention. Surprisingly, there were some people who were talking about the Yunhai sect. Well, the Yunhai sect and the Haoyu sect didn't get along that well. It had been that way for several years already. The destruction of the Yunhai sect was thus a great reason to celebrate for the members of the Haoyu sect. The Ice and Snow Mountain Village, whose disciples all have an ice or snow spirit, as well as the Wanshou sect, whose disciples all have a beast spirit, could also benefit from it in a way because they will have more influence and attract more disciples. Besides, the Haoyu sect must be really happy now because they can clearly be defined as the strongest sect. Hee, Brother Han, you were right. So then Duan Tianlang went to annihilate the Yunhai sect himself. That is the price to pay when you refuse to send outstanding disciples to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu like all the other big sects did. Duan Tianlang is really powerful. These people sounded proud and arrogant. They also seemed to be happy and excited about the destruction of the Yunhai sect. They were talking very loudly. At that moment, many people stopped talking and started staring at them. These two people were laughing loudly while talking, but when they noticed that almost everyone was staring at them, they stopped smiling. Ridiculous. A voice filled the restaurant. Suddenly, everyone turned around and stared at the people moving towards the flight of stairs. 3 silhouettes had appeared. One of them was a woman. She was extremely beautiful and was wearing very luxurious clothes. She also had a lot of jewelry made from precious stones all over her body, and she was wearing a cheongsam. She was holding a soft black iron staff in her hand, and she looked extremely domineering. Behind her were 2 men who looked extremely calm. You are only a mouse who can only see an inch, yet still thinks it can perceive both the past and future. How ridiculous. Everyone was surprised by the woman talking so loudly. She shouted, "Young people don't understand anything and never know when they should talk about certain things. Then they never want to bear the consequences of their actions and don't want to be punished for their mistakes." "Face slap," said the woman. Immediately, an illusion appeared behind her back and slapped the owner of the voice who had just contradicted her. Blood was spilling out of the corner of his mouth. He only annihilated the Yunhai sect, that's all. The big sects have all taken the techniques that the Yunhai sect used to have. Not only has it enabled a great deal of people to acquire great skills and techniques, but it also helps other sects gain more influence. It is also a good thing for everybody that the Yunhai sect doesn't have too much power in the country. Those who have been chosen to go to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu will also be able to use some of those skills and techniques that they have taken from the Yunhai sect. Besides, there are also some former disciples of the sect who have betrayed it and can also use these skills and techniques. Nobody cares about the Yunhai sect. The woman was looking at the other man. That man didn't look good, but he kept listening to the woman and didn't dare interrupt her or even refute her statements. Therefore, he only nodded wisely. Most of the sects accepted to send some of their disciples to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, not because they were happy about the benefits it would bring to them, but rather because they were scared of the consequences it could have. They were scared to end up like the Yunhai sect and vanish from the maps of the country. They all understood that there was no way out. That is why they accepted to help and destroy the Yunhai sect. That is how everything happened. But even if the Yunhai sect has already been annihilated, it won't last long before the other sects have to go through the same thing. In the Shuiyu country, there can only be the imperial clan. There isn't enough space for other spheres of influence, especially when they have power. Sooner or later, the last group of people who will exercise authority in the Shuiyu country will be the imperial clan. Lin Feng heard the woman say those things and laugh. What she said was partially true but was also too partial. It seemed like she was a supporter of the imperial clan. Since the imperial clan is so strong, why do they need to resort to such underhanded methods? Why do they need to annihilate sects if they are already so powerful? A voice spread in the atmosphere. Lin Feng was astonished. The one who had said that surprisingly was Jing Yun. She really took the woman's words to heart and decided to contradict the woman. The woman slowly turned around and stared at Jing Yun. She smiled coldly and said, "You are right, anyone who contradicts them should be annihilated, like what you're doing now." When the woman finished talking, a soft black iron staff shadow appeared and moved straight towards Jing Yun's cheek. When Lin Feng saw that that woman was attacking Jing Yun, his pupils shrank and he was staring at that rude woman. Lin Feng then said to the woman, "She only said that randomly. Are you not overreacting a little bit? There are some things which cannot be said. If someone says such things, they have to pay the price for it because most of the time, people who say such things are worthless." The woman was coldly looking at Lin Feng and continued, You don't have the qualifications to talk that way either. When Lin Feng heard the young woman, his expression became even colder. He had never needed anyone's permission to speak. When Lin Feng heard the young woman, his expression became even colder. He had never needed anyone's permission to speak. What was wrong with that young woman? Saying over and over again that other people didn't have the right to express themselves. What about her? Why would repeatedly attacking people with her staff give her the right to express herself? That woman is as vicious as a viper. Even though she's beautiful, her beauty is hidden by that disgusting behavior of hers. Lin Feng had bitter feelings. He didn't bear a grudge or hate her, but he was exasperated by the fact that Jing Yun was going to be punished for having said an innocent sentence. Lin Feng had to block the woman's attack even if she attacked him afterwards because of it. She kept contradicting other people, but she didn't want to allow other people to contradict her. She was extremely rude. "You want to die," shouted the young woman furiously. Her staff whistled the atmosphere. First Ling Qi layer, and she thinks that she has the power to bully others, thought Lin Feng, surprised. Lin Feng lifted his hand and started his 8 strikes of desolation. 6 intense and violent strikes spread through the atmosphere. He didn't need to carry out a full 8 strikes against her. 6 strikes were enough for her to be completely overwhelmed. Lin Feng's 8 strikes of desolation was an extremely powerful attack which had stopped the staff moving forwards. "Little sister, be careful," shouted the 2 young men behind her as they launched attacks towards Lin Feng's 8 strikes of desolation. When the combined attacks of the staff and the 2 men collided with the 6 strikes, they vanished. People in the restaurant were frightened by the exchange and started moving away. It seems like these people have a high status in society. They are so young and yet they have all reached the Ling Qi layer. The crowd was surprised because these people had all broken through to the Ling Qi layer. They were stupefied. In the imperial city and its periphery, cultivators of the Ling Qi layer weren't considered as extremely strong cultivators. However, considering the age Lin Feng, the young woman and her 2 guards, it was a very high achievement. The young woman's 2 guards were about 20 years old. Lin Feng and the young woman were about 16 years old, yet they had all reached the Ling Qi layer. They were probably geniuses. "You surprisingly dare to attack me," said the young woman who had been projected backwards by Lin Feng's attack. She looked furious and was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng groaned. He stood up and suddenly, an extremely oppressive qi started spreading through the restaurant. "You want to kill me and I'm not allowed to retaliate, is that what you mean?" Lin Feng thought that it was ridiculous. In the world, there were some people who constantly humiliated and bullied other people, but they couldn't stand being provoked themselves. The young woman's 2 guards were vigilantly staring at Lin Feng. They could feel that Lin Feng was a dangerous existence. "If you want to live, slap yourself and get the hell out of here," shouted the young woman. The young woman's face looked evil. She had never been humiliated in the outer part of the imperial city. "If I want to live?" "I don't know what you mean," said Lin Feng while smiling coldly and started walking forwards. At that moment, a strong qi pierced the atmosphere straight towards the young woman. "You say that I am not qualified to open my mouth, but I would like to ask you a question. What gives a useless piece of trash like you the right to humiliate other people? Constantly slapping other people and even slapping those who are close to you." When Lin Feng finished talking, he moved his hand and carried out another 8 strikes of desolation attack. This time, 7 brutal and violent strikes rushed forward. "How dare you," said the 2 guards whose expression had drastically changed. Suddenly their qi and force emerged from their bodies. They were using all their strength to stop these 7 strikes. A vortex spread throughout the atmosphere and made rumbling sounds. Everybody was staring at them. That young man was extremely powerful. That young woman had provoked him without thinking about the consequences. "Get the hell out of here," shouted Lin Feng. His 8 strikes of desolation attack was moving at full speed through the air. It looked nobody could resist such an attack. Boom boom boom. The atmosphere was filled with an extremely loud rumbling noise as if there was an earthquake which had just been summoned forth. The young woman's 2 guards were blown into the air and then heavily fell down onto the floor. Everybody was astonished. Not only was that young boy only 16 years old, but he was also extremely powerful. Saying that he was a genius was definitely not an exaggeration. It seemed like the external part of the imperial city was also home to some crouching tigers. The young woman was blankly staring at her two guards who had been sent flying by the attack. Her evil expression had disappeared from her face. "You," said the young girl looking at Lin Feng who was walking towards her. She wanted to talk but the words wouldn't come out of her mouth. "Answer my question. You say that I am not qualified to express my opinion, well, what about you?" Lin Feng was walking towards her. He didn't like bully or threaten other people but he could not stand seeing other people get bullied. Lin Feng knew what kind of person that young woman was. He was used to such people. If you gave her an inch then she would take a mile and besides, she would definitely bully other people even more. Could Lin Feng tolerate the fact that Jing Yun had been humiliated by such a person? Lin Feng had no choice but to get involved. Lin Feng wasn't a person that you could bully or humiliate without regard. He had a strong personality and would resist anyone if they were unfair. "Don't you know who I am?" The young woman was terrified by Lin Feng's qi. She was slowly stepping back. She hated herself for not having brought along stronger guards. Of course, she also wouldn't have thought that anybody would surprisingly dare oppose her like Lin Feng. She thought that Lin Feng was probably a foreigner. "Who you are? What does that have to do with me?" said Lin Feng while smiling coldly and then added, "Only a piece of trash relies on their social status to bully and attack other people. What you don't know though is that if you attempt to slap the wrong person, they might slap you back." "Slap me? That's a joke. Nobody has ever dared to slap me," said the young woman coldly. "Is that so?" said Lin Feng with a cold smile on the corner of his mouth and then added, "What an honor, I will become the first to slap you." "You would dare to attack me?" said the young woman looking angrier and angrier. She continued, "If you touch me, you will die such a tragic death that you will not even need a grave for burial. There are some things which cannot be said, otherwise one has to pay the price for it." "You said that a moment ago, do you remember?" said Lin Feng with the same ice-cold expression on his face. He then made another step and added, "Besides, there are some things which you cannot do without regard for other people. Now you will have to bear the consequences of your actions and be punished for your mistakes." "You want me to slap my own face? Well, then I will slap yours. Would you dare?" "Why wouldn't I?" said Lin Feng who had finally arrived in front of the young woman. He then lifted his hand into the air. "Stop," said a sudden voice. The crowd then looked at who had spoken. It was a lithe and graceful woman. She was carrying a guqin. She was on the second floor and was heading to the flight of stairs. She looked so graceful and elegant that it seemed impossible to criticize her. Many people were looking at her. She was the owner of the place. Her name was Qing Xan. She looked like such a pure and innocent person, however she was also stunningly beautiful. Her restaurant definitely had a well-deserved reputation. That woman looked more mature than the arrogant young woman which made her even more beautiful and glamorous. It seems like the battle is not going to happen. Many people were looking at the beautiful woman who was personally getting involved. The tensions had definitely been started because of that arrogant young woman. Nobody liked her but considering her social status, it was hard to oppose her. At that moment, Lin Feng turned around and looked at that woman. She was about 20. He thought that the woman was particularly attractive. But Lin Feng's expression didn't change much. Even if that woman was very beautiful, Meng Qing was much more beautiful than her. Besides, Lin Feng had been spending so much time with Meng Qing and they got along really well, so Lin Feng was started to be immune to other women's beauty. "Is there a problem?" asked Lin Feng calmly yet sounding cold and indifferent. Qing Xan looked at Lin Feng. She looked angry. People who talked to her coldly and indifferently were rare. "You shouldn't touch her," said the woman in a soft and gentle tone which was hiding a certain authority. Lin Feng knew that that woman wouldn't accept any other answer than a positive and agreeing one. "Is it an order?" said Lin Feng on the same cold and detached tone while frowning. When she heard Lin Feng, Qing Xian was surprised. Immediately, she started smiling and said, "No, it's not an order. Just don't make me lose face. How does that sound? I understand, said Lin Feng while smiling indifferently. He then asked, but do we know each other? Huh? Qing Xian was looking at Lin Feng with the same gentle smile on her face and said, well, this is the first time we meet, but, alright, we don't know each other it seems, said Lin Feng while interrupting Qing Xian and then said, if we don't know each other, why should I care about you losing face? Lin Feng's words astonished everybody. That guy was so aggressive. How could he talk to Qing Xian that way? Besides, she was so beautiful. Obviously, Lin Feng didn't know what everyone was thinking and he then continued, when she started provoking my friend, you didn't come out at that moment, right? When she was provoking and slapping other people or when she ordered me to slap my own face, you also didn't come out, right? She's been acting arrogantly and setting herself above everyone else this whole time. She's been humiliating and bullying a whole bunch of people. She wanted me to slap my own face, so now, what are you doing? Why did you suddenly come out? What do you think you're doing? Continued Lin Feng. Qing Xian was speechless. Lin Feng's words resonated through the entire restaurant. Everybody was speechless. They were all thinking about what Lin Feng had just said. Maybe that he was right. A moment before, they had thought that because Qing Xian had come out, Lin Feng had to be quiet and respectful to her. However, at that moment, nobody thought that way anymore because everybody agreed with Lin Feng. Why had she suddenly come out? Why hadn't she come out earlier when that arrogant young woman was harassing the others? Qing Xian had been slapped by Lin Feng, but it was an invisible one. Lin Feng's words had slapped her in the face. She hadn't respected Lin Feng by coming out at that moment. She had even attempted to humiliate Lin Feng. People need to show respect if they want to continue living in dignity, said Lin Feng with a resplendent smile on his face. Suddenly, he landed a thunderous slap against the young woman's cheek. Under the crowd's amazement he slowly lowered his hand. This was a real slap with a shocking sound on impact. Qing Xian's restaurant was suddenly invaded by a heavy silence. Qing Xian's restaurant was suddenly invaded by a heavy silence. Everybody was staring at the young woman's cheek. Lin Feng's hand had left a big red mark on her cheek. One could even see each of his individual finger marks on her face. Nobody would have thought that Lin Feng would actually slap such a beauty. He had slapped without the least bit of hesitation and with a good amount of force. He hadn't only humiliated the young woman by doing this. He had also made Qing Xian lose face. The crowd was blankly staring at the young woman. She slowly raised her hand and then touched her cheek. She had the feeling that her cheek was on fire. Her family name was Duan. She was a member of the imperial clan. Nobody had ever dared slap her, and at that moment, Lin Feng had slapped her. She had totally lost face. She looked so furious that her face had turned grotesque. You shouldn't have done that, said Qing Xian, breaking the heavy silence that had invaded the restaurant. She was still looking elegant and graceful. It seemed like she never lost her temper. What you mean is that I should have let her humiliate everybody without doing anything, said Lin Feng while staring at Qing Xian. He sounded just as calm as her, but that was Lin Feng's temperament. He was actually boiling with fury inside. Even if she attacks you and humiliates you, you cannot fight back. Besides, it hadn't even gone that far yet, replied Qing Xian. Well, sorry for having disappointed you, said Lin Feng coldly and ironically. Lin Feng thought that Qing Xian was a fake. She looked graceful, elegant, pure and innocent on the outside, but she was actually arrogant and unfair. Lin Feng didn't like her at all. The problem is not about me being disappointed or not, it is actually close to what you said earlier. There are some things you cannot do unless you are ready to bear the responsibility for it and pay the price. You are wrong, said Lin Feng while shaking his head, and then added, not only are you wrong but you are also extremely stupid. In the eyes of people like you, you think ordinary people like me are worthless. You can humiliate, bully and attack us while we are not allowed to strike back. Even if we don't do or say anything, the situation is always the same, you bully us ordinary people. Attacking or not attacking, it's all the same since the consequences are the same. The consequences are not that serious anyway. What should I have done then anyway? Escape after having been humiliated? Could it be that? Do you really think that you will be able to leave without paying the price for what you have done? The consequences, unlike what you're saying, will be serious. I know that there is a price to pay for such actions, but I will not be the one to pay the price, I can guarantee that. Lin Feng glanced at the young woman when he said that he wouldn't be the one paying the price. He was talking extremely calmly, which surprised everybody. What Lin Feng meant was clear to everybody. If she kept provoking him, the young girl should first think about her own safety and escaping this place alive. Even Qing Xian was surprised and was blankly staring at Lin Feng. Was he really only a 16-year-old boy? He was so cold, so mature. Are you threatening me? Said the young woman who had understood what Lin Feng meant. The mark left by Lin Feng's hand on her cheek still hadn't disappeared. Oh, you are not as stupid as I thought, you understood that I was threatening you. Congratulations, said Lin Feng sarcastically. Lin Feng thought that the young woman was pathetic. She was walking around and acting like a warlord. She was probably doing that everywhere. Lin Feng thought that relying on the social status of one's family was stupid if one wasn't strong enough to protect their own life. If one met a madman, one would be in a critical situation regardless of social status. Not everyone was able to brave death, most people would rather cling to life, which is why she had not been punished before. For some people though, dignity and honor were more important than life. Maybe when you know who she is, you will not be as calm and serene as now, said Qing Xian. She wanted to scare Lin Feng. She wasn't used to seeing such young people remain so calm and have so much self-control. Tell me. Her family name is Duan, said Qing Xian while fixedly staring at Lin Feng. She had the impression that Lin Feng was going to react even a little and give himself away. At the same time, the young woman was staring at Lin Feng as well. She hoped that Lin Feng would be terrified and would kneel down. Unfortunately for them, they were going to be disappointed again. Lin Feng's expression eventually didn't change and he still looked as cold and detached as before. A member of the imperial clan? Lin Feng didn't look scared at all. Instead, he had a big smile on his face. He then said, I also have a friend whose family name is Duan. He's sitting there at our table. Even though he is a member of the imperial clan, he is much more modest and amiable than her. He doesn't take advantage of his power to bully other people. He is not weak, so he doesn't need to manifest authority to feel superior. He knows that acting that way would just be a humiliation for the Duan clan. The young woman's face suddenly changed. She had tried to humiliate Lin Feng again and in the end, she had been humiliated yet again. Qing Xian was also puzzled. She looked at the people sitting at Lin Feng's table. One person drew her attention. It was Meng Qing. Meng Qing was wearing a fine veil on her face, so Qing Xian believed even more that Meng Qing was the member of the Duan clan. Her posture and other small things made Meng Qing look very elegant and noble. There was an aura of nobility which emerged out of Meng Qing which really made her look like a member of the Duan clan. Qing Xian seemed less confident after having looked at Meng Qing. Suddenly, Qing Xian turned around and looked at the second floor. On the second floor, there was a small room. She was the only one who could go there. But at that moment, it seemed like there were people in that room. We have never seen them. It was a simple sentence, but it made everyone feel frightened. We have never seen them. Lin Feng had said that he had come with a friend whose family name was also Duan. A second after, a mysterious voice came from the room on the second floor had said that they hadn't seen them. That was probably referring to Lin Feng's sentence, and these people had probably said that to refute what he had said. Seems like the rumors are true. Qing Xian is his wife, whispered some people surprised. It was surprising that Qing Xian had played the guqin for everybody. Usually, she only played for him. When the young woman heard these words, the arrogant expression had disappeared from her face. That was him. In front of him, she was nothing. She was too insignificant to mention. He was like the sun and she was just the candlelight. When Qing Xian heard that sentence, she slightly nodded. Since he had never seen them, then these people were not important. Do you have anything else to add? Asked Qing Xian while looking at Lin Feng in a cold and detached way as if she was waiting for Lin Feng to explain what he had said. Lin Feng slightly shook his head. Qing Xian said, since you are in my restaurant, I would like to invite you to leave now. Thank you. When Qing Xian finished talking, she started playing music loudly as if she wanted people to forget about that story. At that moment, two people appeared, one was standing on her left and the other on her right. Lin Feng was still standing calm, looking calm, and suddenly an oppressive force crashed onto his body. These two silhouettes belonged to the people who had been talking in the room on the second floor. Extremely strong. I do not want to get involved in a fight with them. Lin Feng could feel how strong these people were. He then looked in the direction of the second floor and suddenly thought that the people he encountered could be the people that Duan Feng had told him about. Lin Feng was only trying to guess. Could it be that these people were friends with the cruel and evil crown prince? Or with the warm and friendly second prince? Who is annoying my daughter? At that moment, a strong and loud voice spread through the atmosphere. It was coming from the room on the second floor. A silhouette then appeared and came down the stairs from the second to the first floor. That person looked incredibly imposing. He was only standing there and people could already feel oppressed by the qi emerging from his body. It was a middle-aged man. Qing Xian nodded and he then immediately looked at the two people standing next to her. They slightly moved their head and then stopped. For a moment, it seemed like nothing had ever happened. Daddy, said the arrogant young woman. She wanted to walk towards him but realized that she couldn't. A strong and cold qi was enveloping her body and she couldn't move at all. It seemed like if she tried to resist, she could die at any moment. How audacious, said the middle-aged man walking towards Lin Feng, while releasing some oppressive qi. At that moment, the entire restaurant was filled with an oppressive qi. Some of the people were ready to collapse because of that extremely strong qi and many were trying to move farther away. Lin Feng's body was being more and more oppressed with each passing second. He had the feeling his bones were going to crack. He had the feeling that he was carrying an object of several tons on his back. Do you regret now? Said Qing Xian cold and detached. She hoped to see Lin Feng express negative emotions and feelings such as fear or resentment. There are some things, when you do them, you never regret them, said Lin Feng while smiling unperturbedly. He sometimes looked and sounded like a noble hero. Being drunk, singing, talking loudly, etc., all of these are humane things to do. But human beings need dignity, otherwise life is useless. There were some things which had to be done even if they were wrong. Even if you regret, I will not give you any chance, said the middle-aged man when he saw the mark on his daughter's cheek. More strong and oppressive qi emerged from his body and moved straight to Lin Feng. Getting drunk, singing and talking loudly, etc., whispered Meng Qing, repeating Lin Feng's words. She looked perplexed. Meng Qing stood up and went towards Lin Feng. She then stayed behind him. She was looking at all these people attacking and oppressing Lin Feng's body at the same time. A light flashed in her eyes. So many people attacking a single person, is that a normal thing for you people to do? Said Meng Qing slowly. In the blink of an eye, she moved at the speed of light and appeared in front Lin Feng in one step. At that moment, an incredibly and astonishing energy invaded the atmosphere and made everything and everyone in the restaurant freeze. People's hearts were pounding. They were terrified and frozen in terror. Everybody else, get lost. The atmosphere was getting colder and colder. People were shaking from head to toe in fear. How powerful! That's the strength of the Xianqi layer. How powerful! That's the strength of the Xianqi layer. The entire crowd had the feeling that they were literally frozen. Especially the arrogant young woman who was stood close to Menacing. A layer of ice had appeared on her body and it was slowly getting thicker with each passing second. This power could make an entire lake or river freeze solid. What a monstrously terrifying power! In the entire Shuiyu country, any cultivator of the Xianqi layer was considered as an amazing talent and an extremely powerful cultivator. They could easily become elders in the biggest sects of the country or in some sects. Patriarchs. Even the fine veil that was covering Menacing's face was covered with ice. The qi emerging from her body was extremely pure. How old was she? Nobody had paid attention to that detail. Suddenly, her eyes looked even more beautiful than usual. Qing Xen felt a shiver run down her spine. She had tried to scare Lin Feng but it hadn't worked. However, at that moment, her face underwent a drastic change. She suddenly looked frightened and her face had filled with terror. Qing Xen had noticed that Menacing was amazing when she first laid eyes upon her. Some people didn't need to talk to display their abilities, they gave an aura which allowed people to sense their strength unconsciously. Menacing was one of these incredibly powerful people. She was fascinating. But the scariest thing was her strength. Everybody could feel the cold sweat dripping down their backs, with a single movement they could all die. She had taken one terrifying step and it seemed that the entire restaurant was about to completely freeze. Lin Feng was standing behind Menacing but he couldn't feel any of the cold qi emerging from her body. However, he had been able to sense how powerful Menacing was from the qi within the atmosphere. Lin Feng was astonished. Not only was this girl extremely beautiful but she was also extremely strong. How was such a thing possible? Besides, she didn't seem to be aware of how incredibly strong she was. I knew it. She's been living in the Black Wind Mountain for her entire life. She obviously had to be extremely strong. Thought Lin Feng while smiling. Such a monstrously beautiful and strong woman was traveling with him. It seemed like the future was going to be brighter for him. But a girl had come to protect him. How could he not feel slightly disturbed by that? "You heir," shouted the middle-aged man loudly. He took a few steps towards the arrogant young woman, grabbed her and moved far away from Menacing. That girl was terrifying. "What the hell are you still doing here?" said Menacing coldly. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank and his facial expression looked extremely hideous. "Let's go," said the middle-aged man while moving his hand as a sign that it was time to leave. They left using the window and not the door on the ground floor. "You too, get lost too," said Menacing looking at the two men on Qing Xian's left and right. Her voice was cold as always. She didn't seem like she was losing temper at all. "This is my restaurant," said Qing Xian. "We have been disrespected in your restaurant so I don't really care whose restaurant it is." Menacing took a step forward and raised her slender white hand in the air. At that moment, an extremely strong yet cold qi invaded the atmosphere of the entire restaurant. It suddenly seemed like the entire restaurant was caving in under the pressure. There was no sound but the restaurant was being buried into oblivion. Suddenly, multiple rays of sun could be felt by the people standing inside the restaurant. Menacing had barely moved her hand and the entire restaurant had been completely destroyed. There hadn't even been a sound and the restaurant crumbled. Lin Feng was amazed by her power. His mouth was wide open but he was speechless. This girl was way too strong. Outside on the road, the crowd could see that Qing Xian's restaurant had been destroyed. Rays of light and a strong qi had invaded the atmosphere around the restaurant. Many people stopped by and were looking at the restaurant. What is going on? Has Qing Xian's restaurant been attacked? How audacious, suddenly daring to destroy Qing Xian's restaurant. Everybody was looking at the restaurant and was astonished. Qing Xian's back was soaked with cold sweat. That girl was so strong. Revenge would be impossible. But it still wasn't a good idea to provoke the people on the second floor. At that moment, a silhouette fell from the sky where the second floor used to be and landed on the ground. That person was wearing black clothes and had a grave yet stern face. He was coldly looking at Lin Feng and the others. Duan Feng said that the crown prince was aggressive, brutal, heartless etc., but this man doesn't seem to be such a person, so he can't be the crown prince. Besides, the second prince is supposed to be warm, friendly, and smart, but the qi emerging out of his body doesn't fit with that nature of person. So who could that person be, thought Lin Feng. He was convinced that this person wasn't either the crown or the second prince, but he was probably another member of the Duan clan. Xian Qi layer, whispered the man in black clothes. He then said firmly, you are strong, but being a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer doesn't allow you to do whatever you wish in the imperial city and its surroundings. I will not tolerate such actions. When Meng Qing heard him threaten her, she made a very strange face and said, what the hell are you still doing here? When she finished talking, Meng Qing raised her hand again. Let's go, said the man in black clothes, immediately grabbing Qing Xian and leaving. Speaking so much bullshit, said Meng Qing while putting her hand down. The man in black clothes heard her from the sky and was extremely furious. Lin Feng was laughing. That girl really didn't like talking, instead she directly attacked. Some people were laughing at the man who had just left because he had threatened them but in the end had retreated like the rest. He probably did not have the strength to back up his words against Meng Qing. Meng Qing turned around and looked at the others. The rest of her group were looking at her as she was a monster. Meng Qing, sister, you are so incredibly strong, said Duan Feng while making a wry smile. He already thought that Lin Feng was monstrously skilled, but Meng Qing was surprisingly even stronger. It was almost as if she wasn't a human being. How was she practicing her cultivation? Jing Yun's beautiful eyes were wide open in shock. Immediately after, a sorrowful expression appeared in her eyes. She felt ashamed of her inferiority. Meng Qing was stronger and much more beautiful than her. Are you a human being or a monster? Whispered Lin Feng. That girl was way too amazing. Nie Shao Qian, whispered Meng Qing looking strange. Immediately after, she walked towards the table and sat down. Lin Feng was speechless. Lin Feng, big brother, who is Nie Shao Qian? Asked Duan Feng looking confused and staring at Lin Feng. The sister of a supernatural entity, whispered Lin Feng, which made Duan Feng shiver from head to toe. Lin Feng sat down next to Meng Qing and whispered, you are so amazingly strong, why have you never told me? You never asked, replied Meng Qing, which made Lin Feng's eyes roll. He felt depressed. Well, how strong are you? Asked Lin Feng. Meng Qing looked at Lin Feng. A light flashed in her eyes and she said, I'm not telling you. But I should be strong enough to protect you from any dangers, added Meng Qing, which made Lin Feng feel much better all of a sudden. Such a wonderful and beautiful woman said she would protect him. That wasn't a bad idea. But after this, you should tell me at least 5 stories a day from your home, continued Meng Qing, which stupefied Lin Feng. 5 stories a day. When Duan Feng and Jing Yun heard Lin Feng and Meng Qing's conversation, their minds were filled of questions. Nie Shao Qian. The sister of a supernatural being. Lin Feng's home. Jing Yun was feeling particularly bad to see that Lin Feng and Meng Qing were already so close and intimate. Besides, she couldn't understand anything from what they were saying. Jing Yun felt her heart grow sick. Maybe only a girl like Meng Qing can make Lin Feng fall in love with her, thought Jing Yun. Suddenly, a smile appeared on her face. For Jing Yun, Lin Feng was an outstanding genius. The people who were in the restaurant were leaving one after the other. Lin Feng and the others, against all expectations, were calm and unperturbed. They ate their fill, drank a lot and then left what remained of Qing Xian's destroyed restaurant. At that moment, a myriad of people were moving towards the imperial city. The gate of the imperial city was about to be opened. Lin Feng was driving the carriage towards the imperial city. A short time after, they arrived in front of the magnificent and grandiose gate. That gate and the gate of the Yunhai sect really have nothing in common, whispered Lin Feng. There was a huge queue on the stone bridge leading to the gate of the imperial city. Look! There are some people entering from the sky. How strong! The entire crowd, who was queuing on the ground, could not help but stare at them with envious eyes. They had raised their head and could see people were entering the city from the sky. Lin Feng raised his head and saw gigantic black wings in the sky. They were creating whirlwinds in the air as they moved through the air. It looks like a legendary rock. Could it be Chu Zhanpeng? Thought Lin Feng, surprised. The person on the bird looked at the crowd on the ground and then entered the imperial city at full speed. Chu Zhanpeng is really extraordinary. Looking down at the gate of the imperial city like this and then directly entering into the imperial city, thought many people. He was extremely strong. Wherever he was respected. Even the imperial clan members respected him. He could even enter the imperial city like this and nobody would prevent him from doing so. Those who were strong enough to fly had enough power to do as they wished. They could all enter the imperial city without waiting. Chu Zhanpeng, wait for me, said a distant voice in the sky. At that moment, snowflakes started falling from the sky. That person was wearing snow-white robes. Immediately after, that person followed Chu Zhanpeng and entered into the imperial city. The high official Luo Shui, said the crowd, surprised. The Shuiyu country had 8 high officials. 6 of these high officials were from the imperial city and 2 were external. There was 1 in the Haoyu sect and 1 in the Ice and Snow Mountain village. If the 2 external high officials came to the imperial city, it meant that all of the high officials were going to have a meeting. In the very center of the imperial city there was a huge and magnificent palace. In the very center of the imperial city there was a huge and magnificent palace. Around the palace, there was a myriad of guards walking around. That palace was the core of the imperial city but also of the entire Shuiyu country. That palace belonged to the imperial clan. The rumors say that there are 8,100 checkpoints in the palace. These checkpoints had heavy curtains which would need to be passed through. Only those who managed to go through all of these checkpoints could reach the inner palace. At that moment, there was a silhouette walking inside the palace. That person was walking normally as if they were walking on a normal street. Nobody was obstructing their way. That person was wearing black clothes. That man's facial expression was rigid and motionless like a mountain. That man passed through various heavy curtains and arrived in front of a pond. By the pond, there was a bench where someone was sat as they fished in the pond. That person was wearing simple white robe and looked very friendly. He was about 20 years old. The man in black clothes and the one in the white robe looked similar. The man in the white robe was sitting on the bench and fishing, looked quite enigmatic. The man in black clothes had arrived behind the man in the white robe and didn't say anything. An instant later, the man in the white robes who was fishing suddenly started shaking, especially his hand, and with a quick pull he suddenly pulled a silver fish out of the water, which landed next to him in his bamboo basket. The fish was about half a kilo. The way the man in white robes had caught that fish was both graceful and elegant. Immediately after that, a big smile had appeared on his face. "Nan Shan, come, sit down," said the young man in white robes to the man in black clothes while smiling warmly. "Your Majesty," said Nan Shan while bowing. He didn't sit down. "Nan Shan, I haven't seen you in a while. What brings you here?" "He," smiled Nan Shan while nodding his head and then said, "Your Majesty, Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui are here. The holy courtyard of Shuiyu is about to be inaugurated, so this is not at all surprising. You probably haven't come only to tell me this." The young man still had a warm and friendly smile on his face, but he also looked very wise. His Majesty has a sixth sense and can see the future with supernatural accuracy. Today, Qing Xian's restaurant was destroyed. I also met with two very interesting people. Qing Xian's restaurant. Her restaurant is quite a nice place to go. Nan Shan, Qing Xian is not a small girl anymore. When do you intend to marry her? I will gladly arrange for your wedding. The young man didn't seem to be interested in what Nan Shan was saying. He rather changed the subject and started talking about Nan Shan's private life. The young man in black clothes looked grateful. His Majesty always unconsciously moved the hearts of other people. He was indeed a very kind man. Qing Xian was the woman he liked, so if the young man approved their union, the woman's family had no choice but to accept it, no matter how illustrious they were. Therefore, the young man's sentence had been enough to make Nan Shan's heart beat faster with joy. But Nan Shan thought that it wasn't the right moment to talk about his wedding. Your Majesty, today, Duan Yu went to Qing Xian's restaurant. She acted childishly and made a scene, and when she came across a 16-year-old young man, he slapped her. Huh? The young man smiled and said, well, that is a funny and interesting story. People who would dare slap her outside of the imperial city are indeed rare. I am sure that Duan Lai helped her to deal with this situation. It is also unlikely that Qing Xian watched with folded arms, right? Your Majesty, you are right. Everybody got involved, but in the end, it wasn't enough and the restaurant ended up being destroyed. I also had to escape with Qing Xian. There was a young teenager of the Xianqi layer. Nan Shan smiled, which made the young man look even more interested in his story. The young man then said, a teenager of the Xianqi layer. It's impossible. What clan could he be from? Your Majesty, I didn't express myself clearly. There was indeed a teenager of the Xianqi layer, but it was a young girl. She is extremely beautiful. She looks very delicate, innocent and graceful. The clan she comes from. Nan Shan was deliberately trying to make his story sound more interesting, which made the young man laugh. The young man then said, Nan Shan, you know how to keep me in suspense, but that young girl of the Xianqi layer, what is her social status? I really don't know. I've never seen her before, but I think that your Majesty will definitely be more interested in that young man. Oh, the young man was really curious at that moment. Who could be more interesting than a young girl of the Xianqi layer? What's his name? Lin Feng, replied the man in black clothes. Lin Feng, whispered the young man. On the day when the Yunhai sect was destroyed, one of the disciples was saved, and I'm pretty sure his name was Lin Feng. Indeed. That's him. The story of his life is even more interesting, said the man in black clothes, keeping the young man in suspense. Tell me, said the young man with excitement flashing in his eyes. Lin Feng is from Yangzhou City, said the man in black clothes. Yangzhou City. Lin Feng, repeated the young man in a low voice. He thought for a few seconds and then his face became rigid. His eyes were sparkling and then he said, her son. Indeed. Her son, nodded the man in black clothes. The young man seemed fascinated and then said, I'm indeed really interested in him. Please tell me more. By the way, Nan Shan, you should not tell too many people about this. Your Majesty, I know what to do, replied Nan Shan while smiling. Lin Feng didn't know that people were talking about him at that moment. One important thing was that Lin Feng didn't have a social status in Yangzhou City or in the Imperial City. He was just an ordinary person with no powerful background to protect him. The four of them got out of the carriage and were looking at the gigantic Celestial Academy. There were many cultivators walking by. Most of them looked excited and incredibly arrogant. The name of the academy was written in huge, bold and flamboyant cursive calligraphy at the entrance of the city. Under the arch of the entrance gate, there were some old men sitting on chairs and had tables in front of them. On the tables, they had ink and brushes. People who arrived next to them gave them a letter which the old man signed. After that, the cultivators happily entered the Celestial Academy. Reawar. At that moment, a ferocious beast roared which drew the attention of many people. Everybody turned around and saw a woman in red robes sitting on a ferocious beast. That ferocious beast was a brown goblin lion. Its hair was thick and looked like flames. Its roaring sufficed to make anyone feel intimidated. Sitting on a ling-level ferocious beast. How imposing! Some people were amazed. Some of them looked jealous, some others looked envious. Zhongling. At that moment, an illusion flew through the air and arrived behind the woman in red robes. A moon wolf, another ferocious beast of the ling level. The eyes of the people in the crowd shrank. They could only see a young man sitting on the back of that ferocious beast. The young man was about 16 years old. The Celestial Academy really deserves its reputation. Everyone was astonished. Even though the Celestial Academy wasn't well known in the Imperial City, its reputation was obvious at that moment. It was also known for accepting only extremely outstanding disciples as well as disciples coming from the best clans and families of the country. Of course, some of them weren't paying attention to the ferocious beasts. Some of the people only had eyes revealing determination and willpower to succeed. Duan Feng, it seems like we look a bit downtrodden, said Lin Feng, who was driving the carriage. They could feel the qi released by the ferocious beasts. Suddenly, the horses of their carriage stopped. They refused to move further, scared of the ferocious beasts. Lin Feng smiled wryly and tried to make the horses move forward. Lin Feng, brother, I came here to practice cultivation and not for fun, said Duan Feng while shaking his head and smiling. At that moment, some people turned around and, while looking at Lin Feng, Duan Feng, and the others, they said, another group of beggars has arrived. They look so miserable. Lin Feng and the others coldly looked at those who were saying these things about them. They only saw that these people were smiling. Lin Feng and the others coldly looked at those who were saying these things about them. They only saw that these people were smiling. What are you guys saying? Asked Duan Feng coldly. But contrary to one's expectations, Lin Feng immediately said, Duan Feng, let's go. Go and enter your name on the list. When he finished talking, Lin Feng continued driving the carriage forwards. Lin Feng, big brother, said Duan Feng, who was surprised while looking at Lin Feng, who was smiling and shaking his head. There are so many idiots, can you afford wasting your qi against so many idiots? Duan Feng was surprised. He hadn't expected such a funny answer. He laughed and shook his head. However, Lin Feng's words made these people angry and they made a hideous face when they heard his words. You filthy beggar, if it wasn't forbidden to make trouble near the Celestial Academy, I would cripple your cultivation, said a young man coldly. However, Lin Feng just ignored him. He was starting to get used to idiots in this world. Zuoqiu, whom are you arguing with? Said a voice which had come from behind Zuoqiu. At that moment, Duan Yu's staff had appeared. Nobody, a mere beggar, that's all, said Zuoqiu indifferently. At that moment, Zuoqiu jumped down from his moon wolf. Even though Duan Lai's status wasn't high in the hierarchy of the Duan clan, their family name was still Duan and they required respect from other people. The vision they had of life was that people could be classified into different classes, lower, middle and upper classes. Their thoughts were strictly confined into that system. That was why they had insulted Lin Feng when they saw that Duan Yu had arrived. Therefore, they could show that their social class was lower than that of Duan Yu but still higher than that of Lin Feng. Since he's a beggar, there's no need to get angry. Go and enter your name on the list, said Duan Yu coldly. At that moment, the mark left by Lin Feng's hand on her cheek had disappeared. Her house had enough pills so it was easy to cure such a small injury, but her dignity had been affected and he had wounded her deep within her heart. An emotional injury wouldn't be easy to cure. One of the most horrible things for her is that such news spread quickly in the imperial city. What would other people think about her? Duan Feng arrived at the desk where the old men were. One of the old men immediately said, "Please give me your recommendation letter." "All right," replied Duan Feng and handed it over to the old man. The old man looked surprised. He raised his head and asked, "Your family name is Duan?" "Indeed," replied Duan Feng. "Oh, okay. Go over there and get your card, then you can enter the academy. Of course, some people will welcome you when you arrive," said the old man while pointing at the place where Duan Feng could get his student card. Duan Feng nodded. "Lin Feng, big brother, let's go inside," said Duan Feng to Lin Feng. Right after, the old man said, "How many people are you? Where are their letters of recommendation?" Letters of recommendation? Lin Feng and the others didn't have a letter of recommendation, how could they? Lin Feng shook his head and said, "We are just accompanying him. We don't have letters of recommendation." If you don't have a letter of recommendation, you don't belong to the Celestial Academy, and if you are not members of the Academy, you are not allowed to go inside. Even family members cannot go inside. "You can leave on your own," said the old man calmly but still sounding strict as if he was giving them an order. Lin Feng had just realized that many people who had come there were of noble families but that nobody was accompanied by their group. That was probably because of that rule. Bloody beggars who can't understand the rules. "They don't even have a letter of recommendation and are making fools of themselves," said Zuoqiu, who had arrived near them and heard the old man. Zuoqiu is right. Where are these filthy beggars from? Such a disgrace, said a girl next to him whose name was Zhongling. All the words she said were harsh and poignant. "Duanyu, what do you think?" asked Zhongling to Duanyu. She knew that Duanyu was the most arrogant of all of them. She also thought that Duanyu wouldn't hesitate and slap these lowly beggars. But at that moment, Zhongling noticed that Duanyu was staring at a certain young man's back. She was shivering in fear. She looked strange and was both angry and frightened at the same time. Lin Feng turned around and saw Duanyu. Lin Feng smiled, which surprised Duanyu. As expected from people who would be your friends. You and your friends are the same type of trash. Only bullshit comes out of their mouths just like it did from your mouth, said Lin Feng coldly, which made Zhongling and Zuoqiu furious. That beggar had suddenly dared to provoke them. Besides, he also dared to provoke Duanyu, how audacious. But Zhongling and Zuoqiu looked at Duanyu and saw that apart from looking embarrassed, she didn't look like she was planning to act. Duanyu was usually so proud and easily lost her temper, but at that moment, she remained silent. Zhongling and Zuoqiu were very surprised and found the situation extremely strange. "Whose mouth are you talking about?" said Zhongling while staring at Lin Feng, when she saw that Duanyu wasn't talking. The lion on which she was sitting roared in anger. Ling ferocious beasts were extremely smart and could feel their master's emotions. No intelligence, stupid as hell. "I really don't understand why the Celestial Academy would accept such trash," said Lin Feng while shaking his head. He had humiliated them twice already. Lin Feng could tolerate certain things, but these people really seemed insatiable. He couldn't bear their ignorance anymore. A beggar like you who doesn't even have a letter of recommendation dares call and question the decisions of the Celestial Academy. You are really shameless. Today, even though the Academy doesn't allow such things. "I will slap you," said Zhongling coldly. Nobody had ever dared called her a trash. "That's enough. Today is the registration day of the Celestial Academy." "Get lost," said the old man who looked furious. "Teacher, here is my letter of recommendation." "Please," said Zhongling, who walked over to the old man. She was standing next to Lin Feng and gave her letter of recommendation to the old man. When the old man saw the signature on her letter of recommendation, he seemed surprised. He then immediately said, "You can go and get your card over there. Then, you can enter the academy." "Don't be impatient," said Zhongling while looking at Lin Feng. At that moment, Zuoqiu also went to the old man to hand over his letter of recommendation. The old man looked at it careful and said, while nodding his head, "Not bad, not even 17 years old and already at the second Ling Qi layer. That Zuo clan has given birth to a good young man." "Thank you, honorable teacher," said Zuoqiu while smiling and looking proud. Zuoqiu. However, don't get too excited. There are many geniuses in the Celestial Academy, and next time, try and refrain from making the Zuo clan lose face. "Of course, I understand." "I won't," said Zuoqiu while shaking his head. He then immediately glanced at Lin Feng and said coldly, "However, teacher, right now there is someone who deserves to be punished." A light flashed in the old man's eyes while glancing at Lin Feng. Even though today is the registration day of the Celestial Academy and it is forbidden to create a disturbance, fighting against the people who don't have letters of recommendation is indeed possible, said the old man, which surprised Lin Feng and the others. He then added, "The power and influence of the Celestial Academy is very wide. If I don't slap your filthy mouth, I don't deserve to be a member of the Celestial Academy," said Zuoqiu while smiling. After all, those people didn't even have a letter of recommendation and they were acting recklessly. They were asking for trouble. At that moment, more and more people were coming closer to see what was going on. They wouldn't have thought that some people would be causing trouble while next to the academy. "Beggars will be beggars. They should be punished for being shameless," said a young man in the crowd. He was wearing magnificent clothes and sounded extremely arrogant. These people thought that ordinary people should never be accepted to the Celestial Academy even if they were strong cultivators, because cultivators who belonged to rich and powerful clans had more resources and more money to invest in cultivation goods. Therefore, poor cultivators, even if they were strong, could never reach the level of rich cultivators. What a bunch of trash. Only taking advantage of their power to bully other people. Apart from being able to buy extremely expensive pills to increase one's cultivation power, what's the point of being that wealthy, said a voice in the crowd who contradicted all that the others were saying. That person was, on the contrary, despising cultivators who came from wealthy and noble clans. 2 more people agreed with him. Different views and opinions were suddenly emerging amongst the people in the crowd. In the imperial city, there were many cultivators who came from wealthy and prestigious clans and families. Many of them were really arrogant. As time passed, conflicts and tensions were rising between the different social classes. That was something specific to the imperial city. In other cities, such things almost never happened. What is the point of talking so much shit? A good fight would the best way to find out who is stronger than whom, said some wealthy and noble cultivators in the crowd. There were some people who knew the Zuo clan and its most outstanding junior cultivator, Zuoqiu. Because he wasn't even 17 at the time and had already broken through to the second Ling Qi layer, Lin Feng, who wasn't 17 yet either, could never hope to defeat him. What is the point of talking so much shit? A good fight would the best way to find out who is stronger than whom, said some wealthy and noble cultivators in the crowd. There were some people who knew the Zuo clan and its most outstanding junior cultivator, Zuoqiu. Because he wasn't even 17 at the time and had already broken through to the second Ling Qi layer, Lin Feng, who wasn't 17 yet either, could never hope to defeat him. Challenging him, who doesn't even have a letter of recommendation, is that really fair? People like us shouldn't challenge weaker people, said Zuoqiu. He felt secure in the knowledge that he had backing. If you don't dare, just say it and don't try to find excuses. Zuoqiu, just slap that guy a few times and show to the wealthy and noble cultivators that these beggars cannot compete with us, said a young man in the crowd who had already been talking for a while about how strong the noble cultivators were. The young man who was talking was wearing yellow clothes and looked unbelievably arrogant. He seemed to be about 18 years old. Don't worry, Bai Zhe. No need to tell me this. Even without you telling me this, I would still slap him and make him close that filthy mouth of his, said Zuoqiu while smiling. Everything's alright then. You just can't afford to make the Zhuo clan lose face, said Bai Zhe with an enigmatic smile on his face. Even though Zhuo Qiu was strong and had been accepted into the academy, he still didn't attack Lin Feng even though he just had to stretch out his hand and slap him. Bai Zhe was just wondering why Zhuo Qiu had required so much time to act. Is it even possible for the Zhuo clan to lose face, said Zhuo Qiu with his head held high and while looking at Lin Feng in a disdainful way. He then coldly said to Lin Feng, if you slap your own face, I will not attack you. I've rarely met such a moronic group of people, said Lin Feng while exasperated. He didn't even pay attention to Zhuo Qiu. He was looking at Duan Yu, who didn't even try to warn Zhuo Qiu of the danger. Instead, she was calmly watching the scene and was waiting for the show to start. Everybody was quickly going to learn about the fact that Lin Feng had slapped her, but if Lin Feng showed his strength then at that moment, she wouldn't lose as much face because everybody would see how strong he was and people wouldn't think that she had been slapped by a random nobody. Moronic? The crowd found Lin Feng intriguing and were getting more and more interested. Zhuo Qiu, the one you called a beggar has just called you a moron. Hee hee, Zhuo Qiu, seems like you're intimidated by this young man, said another voice. These brutal comments had made Zhuo Qiu look angrier. Not only I will slap your face, but I will slap their faces too. I will teach you and your friends a good lesson, said Zhuo Qiu looking at Meng Qing and Jing Yun. This had made Lin Feng furious. He didn't like provoking people, but people always decided to provoke him. Why did these nobles always look down on those they thought were weaker than themselves? Are you still not done talking utter nonsense, said Lin Feng coldly, making Zhuo Qiu even more enraged. His body shivered, he raised his hand with the palm of his hand wide open. The qi emerging out of it created a whirlwind in the air. He swung his hand directly towards Lin Feng. Such a strong slap sufficed to send anyone flying on impact. A cold and indifferent smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. He raised his hand as fast as a lightning and stopped Zhuo Qiu's hand halfway. Huh? Said Zhuo Qiu surprised. That guy was not weak if he was able to stop his hand like that. Do you think that using all your strength to block a slap is useful? Said Zhuo Qiu coldly. Suddenly, flames emerged from his body. Immediately, he opened his mouth and spat out fire. Suddenly, the flames began to rush straight towards Lin Feng. What a strange skill, said the crowd surprised. Lin Feng was definitely unlucky and it didn't look good for him if he took this surprise attack. But at that moment, Lin Feng used his other hand to carry out an attack. An incredibly strong qi emerged out of his palm and moved straight towards Zhuo Qiu's flames, extinguishing them and then continuing towards Zhuo Qiu. Immediately, Zhuo Qiu retrieved his other hand and then joined both his hands to release an incredibly powerful flame which moved straight towards Lin Feng's attack. The air was hot and heavy, but Zhuo Qiu's eyes were ice cold. He had greatly underestimated Lin Feng and had been forced to use his full power to protect himself. But Lin Feng's had attacked again. Even though Zhuo Qiu had blocked Lin Feng's first slap, his eyes were wide open and fixedly staring at a palm moving towards his face at full speed. Retreat, thought Zhuo Qiu surprised, but wasn't it too late? Clap. At that moment, a clear and loud clapping noise spread in the atmosphere. The entire crowd was dumbfounded. He wanted to slap Lin Feng, but he had been slapped by Lin Feng in return. Lin Feng had not used much of his strength. Zhuo Qiu was still standing there, but his dignity had been hurt more than his cheek. His dignity had even been completely trampled over and he had completely lost face. You dared to hit me, said Zhuo Qiu, who didn't realize what had just happened. He touched his cheek. It was burning, and he had a large bruise on his face. What gave you the first clue? Said Lin Feng in reply to his stupid question. You have tested my patience enough today. I'm tired of your ignorance. Get lost, said Lin Feng while raising his hand and slapping Zhuo Qiu again. That time, Lin Feng didn't restrain himself from using his strength. The palm of his hand immediately crashed onto Zhuo Qiu's face, which sent him flying several meters backwards. When the crowd heard Zuochio's body heavily fall down onto the ground, they shivered for a second. That slap, how cruel. Lin Feng turned around and looked at Zhongling. She looked surprised and made a step back. You deserve the same thing, said Lin Feng. Zhongling's pupils shrank. She looked incredibly scared. What a humiliation. I will kill you, suddenly shouted Zuochio furiously while slowly standing up. Whistling Moon Wolf, yelled Zuochio. Zuochio's Whistling Moon Wolf was moving towards Lin Feng at an incredible speed. It looked like it was traveling faster than light. It emitted a dazzling light as it moved and seemed like it was tearing the atmosphere apart. Animal, said Lin Feng. A bright light flashed between the wolf and Lin Feng. Suddenly, there was no light remaining between them and no sound could be heard. The moon wolf's body fell heavily onto the ground with no sign of life. That light came from a sword. It was definitely a sword, said some people in the crowd. It had been an extremely quick and agile sword attack. One sword strike and he had killed the Ling-level moon wolf. You, said Zuochio, extremely furious. His face looked demonic. If you don't want me to close your filthy mouth for eternity, then don't force me listen to your bullshit again, said Lin Feng while emanating a ruthless killing intent. Obviously, Zuochio quickly closed his mouth but still looked extremely furious. No matter how furious he was, he did not dare say a word. Hee, and they are so arrogant. Noble and wealthy cultivators really are such a joke. They're not even able to withstand a single attack. Such a bunch of trash, said someone in the crowd. Those who had been encouraging Zuochio to attack Lin Feng. Not only had Zuochio not managed to slap Lin Feng, but he had been slapped twice. That had caused a great humiliation for all of the wealthy and noble cultivators who had previously been acting arrogant. They had the feeling that they had been slapped themselves. Zuochio, you're the disgrace of the Zhuo clan, said Bai Zhe coldly, which made Zuochio feel embarrassed at his own actions. Zuochio had already been humiliated, but Bai Zhe was ruthless with his insults. Zuochio was furious. But when Zuochio thought of how strong the Bai clan was, he controlled himself and continued to endure the torment. At that moment, Lin Feng was fixedly staring at Bai Zhe, which made Bai Zhe wonder what Lin Feng wanted. Bai Zhe's pupils shrank and he looked at Lin Feng. A moment ago, are you not the one who said to Zuochio to slap me a few times? Said Lin Feng to Bai Zhe indifferently. The crowd suddenly quieted down again. Lin Feng wanted to fight yet again. Lin Feng was starting to grow angry and impatient when he saw that Bai Zhe wasn't replying at all. You ordered him to slap me, but he failed. Shouldn't you try it yourself now? Shouldn't you show to everyone that you were right about the fact that wealthy and noble cultivators are the best, said Lin Feng, whose words were resonating throughout the crowd. At that moment, all the cultivators who were not from wealthy and noble families started giggling and laughing at Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe, a moment ago, you provoked and humiliated someone, what are you doing now? Could it be that you are scared? Bai Zhe, weren't you saying that wealthy and noble cultivators were 1,000,000 times better than ordinary cultivators? Why can you not prove your statements with your actions? Give us evidence. Show it to us. Could it be that the only thing the wealthy and noble cultivators possess is a big mouth? All of these harsh words were stabbing into the ears of the noble and wealthy cultivators. Everybody without exception, noble and ordinary cultivators, were staring at Bai Zhe, looking forward to hearing his response. Bai Zhe was standing in the middle of the crowd. His magnificent clothes could not hide the evil expression on his face. He had a gruesome and blood-curdling facial expression. He looked like an evil monster. Bai Zhe was standing in the middle of the crowd. His magnificent clothes could not hide the evil expression on his face. He had a gruesome and blood-curdling facial expression. He looked like an evil monster. Lin Feng's words had made him extremely angry. If he didn't fight, people would ridicule him to death. The fight between Lin Feng and Zhuo Qiu had made it impossible to determine Lin Feng's real strength. They did not even have a chance to see Zhuo Qiu's level of strength. The only thing people could be sure about is that Zhuo Qiu was weaker than Lin Feng. He is about 16 years old, but he is already very strong. He is most likely at the peak of the second Ling Qi layer, and he is much stronger than Zhuo Qiu, thought Bai Zhe as he tried to reassure himself. Bai Zhe had already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer and could easily defeat Zhuo Qiu if he wished. Initially, he thought that Lin Feng was a mere beggar, but Lin Feng's strength as well as his personality left Bai Zhe perplexed. He was puzzled. For him, his downtrodden appearance didn't correspond to his personality and strength. Bai Zhe was not convinced because for him, no matter if he won or lost that battle, there would be no benefit for him in the slightest. If he won, nobody would acknowledge his strength. Indeed, winning against a beggar was something normal and obviously expected from him. Nobody would think it is a glorious thing for him to win against a nobody. Some people would even think that he abused his power to bully the weak. However, if he lost, he would lose face and would maybe be regarded as someone not worth mentioning. He would maybe lose everything that he had worked so hard to build all of his life. "Are you sure that you want me to show you how strong I am?" asked Bai Zhe in an extremely evil tone. His manner of speaking reminded Lin Feng of Wenren Yan. Bai Zhe also sounded like a snake, or more precisely, an evil and venomous snake. "Yes, I am sure," replied Lin Feng while nodding. "Have you thought about the consequences yet?" said Bai Zhe, looking even more evil. "If I show you my strength, then you will be sure to regret it forever." "Hee," laughed Lin Feng while a sharp light flashed in his eyes. He then coldly said, "You, rich and wealthy cultivators have really filthy mouths. I'm starting to get used to how much you guys like to talk. You don't need to keep talking. I have heard enough bullshit already today." At the same time, while talking, Lin Feng glanced at Zhuo Qiu. Zhuo Qiu and Bai Zhe looked the same to him. "Ha, did you hear that? Bai Zhe should stop talking about other people." "Yeah, absolutely. These rich and noble cultivators seem to be extremely strong when you listen to them, but if you challenge them, they cannot withstand a single attack." Ordinary people were excited, but the cultivators coming from wealthy and noble families looked more and more furious, especially Bai Zhe. He felt like killing Lin Feng on the spot. "Are you sure that you clearly understand the consequences of your actions?" said Bai Zhe while walking out of the crowd. He really sounded like a snake. "Have you thought of the consequences each time you called me a beggar?" said Lin Feng while taking a step forward. Sharp and brutal qi started emerging out from his body. "I am a noble, I am rich, I am a member of the Bai clan in the imperial city, I am not even 18 years old yet I have already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. I have a high status in society. I am a genius. I am extremely strong. I have everything that I want. What's your problem? Is it wrong to say that you're a beggar? Is it not the truth?" said Bai Zhe while making another step. A brutal and cold qi moved towards Lin Feng. It seemed like the purpose of the attack was to damage Lin Feng's internal organs. Bai Zhe used all the strength he had after breaking through to the third Ling Qi layer. "I was born as an ordinary person, never had much money to invest in resources and always relied on myself to progress. I just turned 16 and I've already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. Can you compete with me?" said Lin Feng, whose words were sharp as a sword. Suddenly, an incredible sword qi and force whistled through the air. The earth and the sky were emitted rumbling sounds. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Feng had just turned 16 and was at the same level as Bai Zhe. They had both broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. However, Bai Zhe had grown up in a much better cultivation environment than Lin Feng. Bai Zhe had had everything he needed to increase his cultivation. Besides, he was about 2 years older than Lin Feng. The difference was too big. "Such an outstanding disciple doesn't have a letter of recommendation for the Celestial Academy," said some people in the crowd who thought Lin Feng was incredibly talented. Zhuo Qiu, who was standing next to Zhongling, wasn't saying anything. He didn't know what to think. He had criticized Lin Feng about the fact that he wasn't a wealthy and noble cultivator. He had also made fun of him for not having a letter of recommendation. But at that moment, he realized that Lin Feng had many more natural abilities and was more gifted than them. Even Bai Zhe had lost his splendor in front of Lin Feng. The path of cultivation is full with such events. Cultivation was about being stronger than the others, no matter what their background. The goal was to stand high above all mortals. When the force released by Lin Feng crashed into Bai Zhe's body, Bai Zhe felt that he was losing in strength. He said he was a genius so he couldn't lose so easily. He took a few steps backwards and released his force in an attempt to make Lin Feng's attack collapse. He hadn't thought about the fact that he was probably going to embarrass himself. Lin Feng's force was much more powerful than his. It was sharper and more violent. On the path of cultivation, apart from one's speed of progress, one must also understand skills and techniques. That is indispensable. However, of course, the spirit is the most important thing. The spirit belongs to the soul. I have a beast spirit, more precisely, a white snake spirit. How could you even compete with me, said Bai Zhe, who was oppressed by Lin Feng's force. He was not going to accept losing to a beggar. He released his spirit. Immediately, a snake's shadow and two hideously bestial eyes appeared above his body. They were evilly staring at Lin Feng. As expected, it's a beast spirit, said Lin Feng while smiling. The eyes of the white snake staring at him reminded Lin Feng of Wen Renyan's pupils, as expected, as they both had snake-type spirits. Indeed, the spirit belongs to the soul, but there are some people who, regardless of their spirit, can't withstand a single attack, said Lin Feng indifferently. He used his moonlight feather agility technique to immediately appear in front of Bai Zhe as he raised a single finger. You want to die, said Bai Zhe while smiling coldly. Lin Feng despised him that much that he was attacking with a single finger. Bai Zhe started moving his hand to block the attack and his white snake spirit followed suit. At that moment, Bai Zhe was suddenly surprised. An extremely strong and powerful qi crashed onto his body. It seems like Lin Feng's finger had become as sharp as a sword. The atmosphere was filled with a deadly qi. It was terrifying. I cannot dare face that finger attack head-on, thought Bai Zhe. He suddenly started to panic. He had the feeling that a single finger was going to rob him of his life. Lin Feng's qi was present in the atmosphere yet was invisible to the extent that the crowd had no idea what was going on at that moment. But for Bai Zhe everything was clear, he was surrounded by sword qi. He had the feeling that he would be completely crushed at any moment. Crack. Bai Zhe had an extremely painful sensation in his hand on which a thin mark of blood appeared. He couldn't stand the pressure of the attack any longer. His entire body was being crushed and bruises had started to appear all over his body. Retreat. Bai Zhe was about to collapse under the pressure and decided to retreat, but Lin Feng's finger was still releasing even more terrifying force. Die. Lin Feng said only word. Then, Lin Feng's finger started emitting a bright light and powerful energy immediately lacerated the atmosphere. Cracking noises spread through the air. Bai Zhe groaned. His white snake spirit started releasing strong qi. But at that moment, his white snake spirit dispersed and disappeared. Bai Zhe was kneeling down on the ground. Everybody was stupefied and was blankly staring at Bai Zhe. The atmosphere became entirely silent. Splash, splash, at that moment, the crowd saw blood dripping out of Bai Zhe's head. Lin Feng's finger, how terrifying. Lin Feng's meaning was that some people used their spirit but couldn't withstand a single attack while some others didn't use their spirit but were still extremely strong. The crowd knew that Bai Zhe had used his spirit but still couldn't withstand a single attack because Lin Feng didn't need to use his spirit, which proved he was stronger than Bai Zhe. At that moment, Lin Feng was looking at Bai Zhe kneeling down on the ground. He was surprised. He wouldn't have thought that one finger would be enough to bring down his opponent, so he was very satisfied of himself. I am still not able to completely unite with the power of the sword. Only some parts of my body can use sword force. I recently started using forces. It's not been such a long time. That's why my body and my sword force can't completely unite, but being able to use a finger to harness sword force is already a great achievement and was enough to make Bai Zhe kneel down. How powerful will I be when I fully unite with my sword, thought Lin Feng. A moment before, he had managed to make his finger and his sword force fuse together. It had been an extremely powerful attack. Lin Feng had made great progress as a sword master. He was much stronger than before and also understood much more about the way of the sword. I am still far from being able to make my body and the sword force fuse together, but I need to understand how it is meant to work first. It was clear to Lin Feng that he was still far from being able to achieve such an incredible feat, but he needed to progress slowly, step by step, so he could base his strength on solid foundations. Cough, cough. Bai Zhe was coughing blood. He was still unable to stand up. He had been so arrogant a moment before and had sounded as if he was levels above Lin Feng. Lin Feng was smiling. Lin Feng had used only one finger to defeat Bai Zhe after he released his spirit. There would be nowhere within this world where he could hide away from his shame. Lin Feng was cruelly looking at Bai Zhe. His eyes didn't express the least bit of compassion. Lin Feng suddenly said, "You say that you are a genius. You are extremely proud of coming from a wealthy and noble clan. You called me a beggar. Well, what do you intend to do now?" said Lin Feng indifferently. Lin Feng's words made Bai Zhe feel like he was being slapped. That slap was much more painful than Sui Qiu's one as it stabbed into his pride. Besides, not only Bai Zhe was humiliated but all the others noble and wealthy cultivators who were making fun of him. Each and every single one of them was making a hideous face. They had all been indirectly slapped by Lin Feng. Not so long before these events, they were all arrogantly calling Lin Feng a beggar. Not so long before these events, they were all arrogantly calling Lin Feng a beggar. At that moment, not only had the beggar slapped Sui Qiu and humiliates Bai Zhe, but he had also slapped all of them, indirectly. All of them had lost face from their arrogant words. If Lin Feng was a beggar, what were they? You are all a band of arrogant and presumptuous brats. I don't know if you are even able to learn from your mistakes. These few words made the rich and wealthy cultivators even more furious. Shut the hell up. Let me fight against you, said a cold voice suddenly which surprised everybody. Rong Yan, don't challenge someone who's stronger than you as it will surely lead to death. What do you think about having a fight against me? People in the crowd were starting to argue. At that moment, the old man said, "Let me talk." Everybody stopped talking when they heard the old man's voice. In the Celestial Academy, every teacher was extremely strong. The wealthy and noble cultivators didn't dare make teachers lose face. In the Imperial City, there were a great number of wealthy and noble cultivators. There wasn't a single teacher of the Celestial Academy who didn't previously have a great reputation or wasn't famous in the past. After all, these teachers educated cultivators coming from the extremely wealthy and noble families. They could only be the highest class of individuals. Stop making a scene. Don't forget what day it is today, said the old man glancing at the crowd. Everybody quieted down. The old man walked towards Bai Zhe and coldly said, "Stand up." Bai Zhe raised his head and looked at the old man. Bai Zhe looked ashamed. After all, he had been defeated by a single finger. He had completely lost face. Everybody would laugh at him for the rest of his days because of this event. "Teacher," said Bai Zhe while standing up. He was looking at the ground. He really had completely lost face. "Humph, you still have the face to call me teacher," groaned the old man, making Bai Zhe turn even a brighter shade of red. The teacher despised him for causing such a humiliating scene. The path of cultivation is partially about being strong and being a good fighter, but that is not the only goal of cultivation. Another important aspect is to be strong in one's heart. In the continent, there is a myriad of extremely strong cultivators. Nobody should ever consider themselves as the strongest cultivator in the world, no matter their natural abilities or how strong they are. There will always be someone stronger than you. The most important is to be strong in your own heart and true to yourself. Winning a battle isn't about glory, it's about one's personal goals and achievements. Losing isn't about being humiliated, it's about learning how to improve yourself. Even in case of defeat, one should remain determined and not give up. Especially after losing a battle, one should be even more determined to become stronger. Said the old man to Bai Zai. Bai Zai's heart started to beat faster. These words were resonating in his heart like the evening drum and the morning bell. "Teacher, I understand," said Bai Zai while bowing in front of the old man as a sign of respect and gratitude. "If you understand, then that's good. Please go back for now and don't forget to search your soul. Introspection is essential," said the old man indifferently. Immediately after, the old man turned around and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also staring at the old man and was surprised. These teachers were extremely wise and would benefit the students greatly. He had only said very few sentences and he had easily made Bai Zai change his state of mind. If he had not done so, then Bai Zai may have struggled to advance on his path of cultivation. However, even though the old man was an amazing teacher, he was still working for the academy and Lin Feng wasn't a student here. Besides, he had humiliated students of the academy. "During our registration day, you come here and cause trouble. I would like to ask you, what is your motive behind all of this?" said the old man while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was surprised. Lin Feng had been causing trouble. He had been trying to ignore these evildoers from the beginning. "Why do you come provoke and insult my students in front of the academy?" asked the old man again on an extremely cold tone. The wealthy and noble cultivators had a smile on the corner of their mouth. The teachers of the academy were not only teachers, they were also normally members of wealthy and noble clans. Lin Feng was out of luck. He had made the teacher angry. The students who came from ordinary clans and families knew that the teacher was trying to turn things into a bad situation. They knew that he was trying to accuse Lin Feng of things he hadn't committed. However, nobody could say anything. After all, the old man was a teacher at the academy and he was much stronger than all of them. His social status was much higher as well. All they could do was observe how Lin Feng would be dealt with after reaching the end of his luck. Lin Feng looked exasperated. He thought that the old man was ridiculous. He looked at the old man and said, "I remember that when Zuoqiu said he was going to teach me a lesson, you said that it was possible because I didn't have a letter of recommendation. You didn't have any objection when he decided to attack me, and now you are saying that I came to cause trouble and that I humiliated the academy. I would like to ask you, is this what you teach to your students? Unfairness and injustice. You teach them to bully the weak?" "How audacious!" shouted the old man. He looked furious and said, "I know exactly what I'm doing. Who do you think you are? Do you think that you are my teacher? What do you intend to do? How insolent!" Lin Feng was smiling coldly deep in his heart. Only because the old man had the strength to do so, he wanted to bully Lin Feng. Initially, the old man thought that Zuoqiu could defeat Lin Feng, so he hadn't prevented him from fighting, but Lin Feng had won, so that was a humiliation for the academy. Therefore, the old man was angry. "Old man, how can you be so unfair?" "The others provoked him first," said Duan Feng. He was going to spend a lot of time in the academy in the future and obviously hoped that it was a good place to study. He hadn't thought that there would be a conflict on the first day. Besides, the teacher himself was causing the trouble. "You shut up. Don't forget that you are also a student of the Celestial Academy, or could it be that you do not wish to be one of its students anymore?" said the old man coldly, looking at Duan Feng and threatening him. Duan Feng was about to say something else when Lin Feng interrupted him and said, Duan Feng, you are also a student of the Celestial Academy. This thing has nothing to do with you. When he finished talking, Lin Feng looked at the old man and said, So, after saying these things, what do you intend to do? Damaging the reputation of the Academy is a serious crime and you should die for that. However, because today is the registration day, it is an auspicious day, therefore I will just cripple your cultivation, said the old man, sounding like he was saying something normal, but his eyes revealed murderous intentions. Lin Feng was a genius and had extraordinary natural abilities, but how was he supposed to compete with the old man? He was still young and too weak. The old man could easily cripple Lin Feng's cultivation if he wished. Lin Feng was extremely gifted and he wasn't joining the academy, this made the old man want to cripple his cultivation even more. This way, the academy would have one less rival in the future. Lin Feng might have wanted to go and study at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Cripple my cultivation. It sounds like a rather easy task when you say it, said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. When these extremely strong people said such things, they meant it and usually applied what they said without hesitation. If they wanted to kill, they killed, if they wanted to cripple someone's cultivation, they crippled their cultivation. There was no way to change their mind. In front of such people, no matter how gifted someone was, if that person wasn't useful to them then they would dispose of those people without hesitation. This world was about being the strongest. Academies, sects, etc. were all the same. Only strength mattered. But Lin Feng didn't feel scared anymore since Menacing was with him. She had already shown him that she could protect him. She was incredibly powerful. Therefore, Lin Feng was not even slightly worried. Besides, Menacing had promised Lin Feng that she could protect him. Menacing didn't like talking, especially to say superfluous words. So when she said it, she definitely meant it. Teacher, is it necessary to be so furious? Said an indifferent voice at that moment. A silhouette came out of the crowd and continued, this young man is a real genius. If he agreed to join the academy, he could definitely become an extremely strong and powerful person. It was a young man. He had beautiful long hair. His voice was soft and gentle, which surprised a lot of people. Besides, his face looked graceful and delicate to the extent that the word pretty could be used to refer to his facial features. His face looked even prettier than that of an ordinary woman. His name was Wen Ao Shui. What are you doing? Said many of the crowd when they saw Wen Ao Shui. They were surprised. When the old man saw and heard Wen Ao Shui, he nodded at him. And you? What do you think about what he said? Asked the old man to Lin Feng. Everybody was stupefied. When Ao Shui said a single sentence, it had been sufficient to change the old man's mind. What? About me joining the Celestial Academy? Asked Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. Lin Feng immediately shook his head and said, I'm not interested. Huh? The old man was astonished. He glanced at Lin Feng and said, you are definitely not able to recognize what's good for you. I gave you a chance, the chance to join the Celestial Academy, and you refused it. Well, since it's like that, don't blame me.